The U.S. has announced we will be deploying more troops to the Middle East. We've already got a large amount, 19,000 personnel already in the Mediterranean. We've got another 2,000 Marines that are poised to go. And the Pentagon is saying 900 more troops have already deployed or are deploying. So I hope y'all are ready for what's to come. Israel previously agreed to delay their invasion of Gaza to allow the U.S. to prepare missile batteries, Patriot missile and THAAD missile systems. And now we've got reporting Israel has invaded Gaza. So I hope you're ready for what comes next. Now, interestingly, the official reporting is saying, no, they have not yet invaded Gaza. They've just sent a bunch of tanks in to start targeting Hamas targets and killing Hamas leaders with tanks in Gaza. So the tanks are going in, but it's not an invasion. And I'm just like, yo, if having a bunch of tanks go into this territory and kill people is not an invasion, then what's happening on the southern border is not an invasion. Okay, yeah, this is what's happening. But they're trying to be careful about what they call it for PR reasons. People are probably going to get really mad about that. We'll talk about that. Plus, we got a bunch more news. As of right now, police have surrounded the suspect in the main shooting. They've surrounded the home. They've announced to come out. This is all developing, so we'll give us a little time to see what's going on with the story. And then a new video of Jamal Bowman. Oh, boy. The video shows him intentionally removing the warning signs from the door, pulling the fire alarm, and running away. Yeah, this is much more than just I accidentally pulled the fire alarm. Now, he's already pleaded guilty, but it looks like the actions he's taken appear to be more felony territory than anything. We'll get into that. Before we get started, head over to castbrew.com and buy Cast Brew Coffee. Why? It's the best coffee you're ever going to have. No question. We got the limited edition Re-Rise with Roberto Jr. It's Halloween, and we are, I guess, callously mocking the death of our own rooster and mascot. But, you know, it's Halloween, so buy Re-Rise with Roberto Jr. It's a medium roast. It's actually really good, one of my favorites. And we support ourselves. Cast Brew Coffee is our coffee brand. We are launching coffee shops. If you want to help us build these physical locations and be a part of the movement, then go to Cast Brew, buy your coffee from us. But don't forget to also go to timcast.com, click join us, become a member if you want to just support our work directly. This company is funded by viewers like you. If you like the work we do and you want to see more of it, click join us, and you'll also get access to our members only uncensored shows. We're going to have an uncensored show tonight at 10 p.m. You don't want to miss it because we're taking your phone calls. That's right. As a member, you get access to our Discord server to hang out with like-minded individuals, but also submit questions and call into the show and talk to us and our guests. It's going to be a lot of fun. So smash that like button. Share the show right now if you really do like it. Joining us tonight to talk about this and a whole lot more is Grace Chong.
Hi. Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here. I'm the CEO and CFO of Steve Bannon's War Room, and I've had quite a journey to get here. I used to be in the film industry, and believe it or not, I met Steve Bannon 20 years ago at my very first job in the film industry.
Wow.
Yes, and so now I'm working for him directly for the War Room, and it's been really great. I mean, I wear a ton of different hats. I'm, 1 minute I'm doing financial strategies. The next I'm pushing content out on all social media. The next I'm all of a sudden in New York doing a grand jury, and also doing creating some cool ideas for our merch right here.
War Room Posse.
Yes.
Yeah.
We just dropped a new line. If you go to if I can do a plug, shopwarroom.com. We've got sweatshirts, beanies, which we're going to send you some.
Oh, wow.
And we've got totes and a women's line. So for everyone, your audience and also the War Room Posse, love you guys. Shout out to all the War Room Posse that's supporting. We have a discount code for 20% off, Timcast20. The website's live now, so you can go for it. And also, we have another special announcement, if I can say it right now, is we developed an app. It's actually for the posse, but really anyone that wants to get engaged, especially with what happened with the speaker election, of calling all your representatives and congressmen. And right now it's just been so difficult because you have a general line and you have to talk to a switchboard. But we created an app where it's a list of all your representatives, your senators, based on your location. If you want to take turn off the location part, you can look up any state, any representative, and it's all in one app. You can also click on their website to email them. And this is just another tool for us to just really hound them and to make sure that the representatives hear their constituents. And
did you say the name of it yet?
Oh, it's called Bill Blaster. Right now, it is only available on Apple. It was a passion project that was created by myself and my friend, who will remain nameless because he's in the tech industry and the whole cancel culture thing. But this is just a tool because it actually started when the debt ceiling, Steve Bannon, my boss, he wanted me to put all these lists together of who voted yes and no, and it just became this whole Excel spreadsheet. I love Excel because I'm in accounting and finance, and then it ended up being a 40-page PDF of people all I had their Twitter handles or X handles, their websites and everything, and my really pissed off techie friend, he was like, let's make an app. Let's not go backwards.
Let's take action. And
let's take action. So we've been working on this for months. And yeah, just Bill Blaster. It's available on Apple. We're going to work on the Android soon. But please download it. It's free. And yeah, it's a great tool, and I'm super excited.
Right on. Well, thanks for hanging out. Should be fun. We got Hannah Claire hanging out.
Hi, I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for Timcast.com. I'm really excited to be here with you and hear all the updates about War Room, and I'm happy to be here with my friend Shane Cashman.
What's up? I'm Shane Cashman, a big fan of War Room. I was reporting in East Palestine, and I chased a guy who was in a screaming match at the local authorities there, and when I followed him, I wound up at a bar, and in that bar I looked over his shoulder and Steve Bannon was there, and I was like, hey, it's nice to see some other people reporting on that town that people have forgotten about. But I write books. I write the Inverted World series, and if you're feeling in the Halloween mood, I've got the Inverted World book from this recent year. Published it early this year in February or March, and that's me looking for Confederate gold, getting threatened by men who are dating a coven of witches, and get into UFOs.
Right on.
And I'm Serge.com. Just want to tell you guys to cheer for South Africa against England in the upcoming semifinals of the Rugby World Cup. And that's all, Tim. Whenever you're ready.
All right, here's the story from CNN. Pentagon says 900 U.S. troops have deployed or are deploying to Middle East amid heightened tension. So just a few days out from Halloween, and we have not even prepared our Halloween party, but don't worry. We don't need much. All we'll have to do is put on CNN and a bunch of other news outlets and just have them run continuous news coverage of how the U.S. is about to enter a massive regional conflict, which could bleed out into World War III. The one thing I can say is that whereas this is getting crazy, what's going on in the Middle East, it seems like Ukraine's dying down.
Yeah, what's that?
So maybe
Zelensky will tell you all about it. Do not worry.
Maybe it won't be World War III because everyone kind of forgot Ukraine's happening.
Yeah.
And that's gone. But at the same time, as we're seeing these deployments, we have this from The Guardian is also talking about U.S. deployment. But we have this from Fox News. Israeli forces conduct tank raid in Gaza ahead of expected invasion. I am not going to play these stupid double-speak games with you. You do not have video even of tanks storming through the border and killing people and blowing things up and say, we didn't invade yet. That's quite literally, you invaded. Now they're trying to make this distinction, likely because they want to downplay their actions. And we know when the word gets out, it's not like any foreign country cares about what we call it. This is for the American people. They don't want the American people to hear Israel has invaded Gaza. U.S. deploys troops to the region. So they say, no, there's no invasion yet. Just a tank raid.
The tanks are just going for a walk. They need to stretch their legs, test out their wheels. So, it's not a big deal.
It's not an invasion.
Stop asking us questions.
It's an incursion.
They know once the American people hear words like World War III, there's no coming back. And then I think the media is afraid to define it as such. Although I also think they want it. I think a lot of people in media do want this war.
They need their casus belli before the escalation. If World War III keeps getting repeated over and over again, and we hear about troop deployments, and there's no justification for it, people are going to reject it. It's going to poison the well. So that's why they got to downplay the language and make it seem like nothing's happening. It's just, things are getting tense. Then when U.S. forces are attacked or there's some kind of terror attack or something happens, they can then say, now we've invaded.
Do you think to a certain extent they also want to normalize it? They want people in
Yep.
the U.S. to think, oh, well, our troops are already there. Of course they're there. They had
Look
to
at
be
Syria.
there.
Yeah.
Does anybody remember the point at which we entered Syria and started building military bases?
No. But then they could run the headline, American military base bombed or whatever.
It was all of a sudden Donald Trump's like, oh yeah, we've had troops in Syria and we're getting them out. And we're like, wait, what? Really?
We were
Yep.
there. Yeah.
We were there. Yeah, we're getting the troops out. And they lied about that too. They don't want the American people to know. This is the craziest thing, that there are secret wars going on. And this is 10 years ago. What was going on in Yemen was described as a secret war. The American people did not know it was happening. And it's still happening. And now Syria and all these countries, I wonder if they realized, hey, we don't need to generate public support if we just don't tell them it's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Just don't write
No,
it.
no. Once you just tell them we're already doing it, people expect that it's normal, right? If they're used to
Yep.
seeing the headlines, they don't care. And that's what I think is the most frustrating thing about the 24-hour news cycle. It's not that we don't need to have it. Of course, with the internet, you have to keep up. On the other hand, everything becomes information overload. So you're used to seeing American troops in places that you didn't expect them because by the time you wake up in the morning, 45 stories have been written about it.
Right.
There's no way to just say like, oh,
It's
wait,
just
this
getting
isn't
normalized.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. When I walked in the room just now, and I asked you guys, what are we starting with? I had been on another show for an hour, and the world can change in that hour, and you were like, oh, Israel's invaded Gaza. Like, oh wow, you know. And that's how I feel when I fly now. I get in an airplane, I'm afraid to come down. You know, I'm like, what will the world look like when I land?
Well, I mean, the internet on airplanes is pretty good these days.
I never get it. I never get Wi-Fi on the airplane.
Well, you know, you
Wait,
get
why
it.
not?
I get work done. I get to write.
Yeah, I do that.
I have
sometimes.
I have two loud kids, and I get it's my
That's-
office
that's your
space up in
chance.
the air. But yeah,
I mean, when I'm flying, I'm online. That's what I
Yeah.
do, tracking the
Yeah.
news. You know.
yeah, I'm a caveman.
I kind of sometimes it's nice to be able to plug in. Like when we were flying to Miami, I was transcribing an interview I had done, and that
Right.
way I couldn't open 4 or 5 tabs. You know what I mean? Because it's easy.
Transcribing.
I'm 100 years old, Tim. What can I say?
No, it's just like the worst job ever.
I know.
The worst thing.
But like occasionally there's things that you're thinking, if I just buckle down and do this, it will be great. But the mainstream media doesn't. I mean, and the same thing with social media, right? They need you to constantly be checking your apps. They need you to want the notifications.
Yeah.
They need you to be hooked up to the dopamine. And in some ways, the way this news cycle is working, I'm sure everyone can point to something else. It reminds me a lot of the beginning of COVID, right? Every 5 seconds,
That's their business model.
right. You're checking constantly for updates on where you're allowed to go. Do you remember that during COVID, there were states where you couldn't travel from another state?
Yeah.
That was such a bizarre time. And so you were
Well,
constantly looking for new
Weren't there
information.
checkpoints between New York and Connecticut?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Does he get like full tests to go to Hawaii? That's a lot of tests.
There was
to Hawaii, actually.
that woman who got arrested because she flew to Hawaii and then filmed herself like walking around, and they were like, "You didn't quarantine and get
Yep,
tested and
yeah,
stuff."
yeah.
They almost didn't let me in the room to see my daughter be born. I had to handcuff myself almost to my wife.
This was one of my opening stories to Shane. He was like, yeah, I brought handcuffs and I wasn't going to go anywhere. I was going to handcuff myself to the bed. And I was
There
like,
was
really?
no way. Yeah, I was ready.
Wow.
Dude,
and then she
New
was the
York.
only one who had to get, your wife was
look.
the only one who had to get COVID tested in the
Yeah.
room.
Oh, yeah. And I had a governor who was a mass murderer. We can get into that later. But speaking about like the news and missing it for an hour. Like last time I was on IRL last week, it was when the hospital was supposedly bombed. Right.
Oh yeah.
Within that first hour, there were multiple realities about that. Or last night, I'm watching the main thing unfold with the shooter, and there's people sharing multiple videos that aren't true or pictures of people that aren't the suspect. So it's almost like it doesn't matter what happens in an hour, because in that first hour of news breaking, there's a distortion of all this noise, and no one knows the truth, and probably for the next few weeks too,
Yeah.
until we know more.
Sometimes I like the first hour after a story has broken because just the bare minimum details are coming out and it
Yeah.
gives you something to build off of. Because by the time the identity of whoever's involved or the total numbers of death or these kind of tragic details that are incredibly important to report accuracy, by the time those are out, there's already a slant and you can see the way it's being bent.
It's funny because I typically say, when I was teaching journalism, I like to tell the students, your best source for information is the stuff that's closest to the event. So like in Maine, it's who's there.
And local
but then
papers, yeah.
thinking of what's going on in Gaza and Israel, there's a lot of people on that ground who are manipulating news as well. And they're right there. So you got to be so careful. I keep urging people to not just believe anything that instantly confirms any bias you
Right.
have towards anything domestic or foreign, because if it makes you feel good, you should probably be extra suspicious of that news.
I saw a ton of conservative commentators retweeting a bunch of fake videos.
All the time. It's happened a lot.
I mean,
lately.
yesterday with the shooter in Maine.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
And
saw.
I'm just like, yo, what are you guys doing, man?
But it's that urgency, especially Twitter X, whatever it's called, has really emphasize this more than ever, that you have to be the first or one of the beginning
Right.
people to share it, to repost it. You know, you need to be on the front lines of everything. And it means that if you wait to verify, you're behind, but actually you know the truth. It's this sort of weird issue. With what you're saying with the international component of what's being reported on the ground, I always find that the language barrier is sort of the biggest obstacle because, you know, I don't speak either of the languages for which the main
Why
news
not?
source is. I'm just not that educated, you know. I just I really
Anna,
like
you
English.
American.
I'm still trying to master it. Every day is a struggle. No, I'm just kidding. But unless you're Chris Carr and you see all my typos. But the issue there is that people who can speak those languages, and I don't mean this in a mean way, have their own bias when they read the news. And so when they are reading their own sources, I mean, especially if you're, you know, let's say an immigrant from one of these places in America, you have ties there. It makes it not that they couldn't do it accurately. I don't want to make any accusations, but it just means there's a layer of emotional there's a layer of emotion
There's
there.
two
that's not true
barriers
for
you're talking
everyone.
about, and there's like the barrier we have to deal with here and other English-speaking countries, where it's like the barrier of bias and the words they use to describe certain people and the qualifiers they might use in terms of, like, when New York Times writes about RFK Jr., all the qualifiers I got to put in front of his name. He's a COVID conspiracy theorist, all these things, but then it's also the language barrier on top of that when you're dealing with the international news. So it makes it to the point where I'm like, I can't really believe anything I'm reading right now.
And everyone
especially-
just wants to go viral.
Oh, yeah, and make
whether
money
it's
off of it.
true or not,
Yep.
or somewhat true. Yeah,
Yep.
and then they won't delete it because
They should.
yeah.
Elon should get rid of. Well, I say he should, but Twitter had talked about getting rid of follower counts and like retweet numbers and stuff like this. And the reason they never did, Twitter knew that it's a scoring system.
Status.
Ratio means you failed, and retweets mean you've succeeded. And that's what everyone does on X.
Yeah.
If you got rid of that, you lose the gamification of social media, and nobody wants to give up that position.
But then the bots,
Instagram- sorry.
the bots subverted that though. Like just today, our friends in Mythinformed, right? They were locked out of their account. I retweeted something about them. I happened to tag X support or whatever. Infiltrated by bots. Dozens of accounts, all created in October of this year, sharing the same link, different bots.
But are those bots? They have the blue check, right?
I don't know if they all had the blue check, but
There's
their
a lot.
names were all similar. It was like a name and then
Yeah.
like a bunch of numbers next to it, and then the same link. So
They will have a lot of those bots will now have those blue checks.
Yeah. Instagram tried something similar where they removed, they would say, we'll take away the like number, like how many likes your photo is getting. And at the time they were saying it was to combat, especially, social media addiction, but specifically body dysmorphia issues with
Right.
young teenage girls.
Right.
The fact that they would, post certain things and they would get a reaction to it. And I don't know that it made a difference. I think in some ways it just re-emphasize that you don't know how valued you are. And I don't like that we have these digits. On the other hand, you can understand when we have the content, the influencer industry that says we need to know how many people follow you, we need to know what your reach is like, we need to know what your engagement is like, why those tools actually exist for some people as a business model.
yeah.
I want to pull up this tweet from Kit Clarenberg. Kit is a reporter for, I believe he's at Gray Zone, and he noticed something interesting. Now, I want to make sure I'm very careful here as we start this. This is not hard confirmation of anything, but I do think it's something that warrants paying attention to. He stated, "It's over." And there's an article that says, "Israel rejects Zelensky's visit. Time is not right." And this is from 10 days ago. He says, "What's also striking is prominent pro-Ukraine accounts are shuttering rapidly, such as UA Weapons, which claimed to track Russian losses and garnered almost 1 million followers. Wonder how long it'll take for those flags to start disappearing from display names. Why do you think?" asks H2. He says, "Infrastructure, technology, and personnel used to amplify these accounts is being redirected elsewhere. Western powers have no use of propaganda encouraging the view Ukraine will win and needs to be sent weapons now. Quite the opposite." So this is an interesting argument that we're seeing. I think we have this one. He says, "Absolutely classic. An anonymous high-profile pro-Ukraine account that 10 days ago attacked me for suggesting high-profile pro-Ukraine accounts are shutting down in a coordinated manner is now shutting down." Calibre Obscura says, "I will be deleting this account within a few weeks. Life is increasingly busy and frankly no longer in a place where I want to interact with things that I do every day, etc., etc." Now, it may be. This is very, very interesting. This is a tweet from October 16th when he put this out. This is a little while ago that he tweeted this. And then I think this next one was from just yesterday. It could be that U.S. intelligence agencies have been running PSYOPs. pro-Ukraine accounts generating massive numbers of followers, not necessarily pro-Ukraine. Like this UA weapons account apparently was checking all information. But the argument would be, yes, but from a Western perspective. When they say, oh, Russian troops are dying, is it the Western number or the Russian number? And then you have this other account that's shuttering as well. Perhaps one of two things is happening, and there could be other things. Intel agencies are running psyops, and now that the money is being diverted to Israel and the Middle East, we can't run these accounts anymore. So somebody who is in, some kind of psyops division or a private contractor is told, hey, shutter those accounts. We're going to be focusing on Israel. And they go, you got it. Oh, sorry, my family thing happened. Or the simple solution perhaps is Ukraine is over. No one cares anymore. This one account, Calibre, being like, my life's getting a little busy. You may as well just say what is going on in Ukraine no longer bears weight with me. Mm-hmm. And other things have become more important. And that just says whether it is the end of a psyop or not, nobody cares about Ukraine. It's done.
Yeah. I mean, it's not good for Zelensky either way. He was really counting on more American money, from what I understand. But I think it's interesting.
I said this before. Russia won.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways that's true. I think it's interesting to see the way Ukraine has fallen to the background, right? I mean, we don't see any pro-Ukraine protests. It's not even like there was a way for these two different groups to team up. It's just off the record. And to a certain extent, I credit that to the fact that the American people can really only have one big thing in the news cycle at a time. It's very difficult for them to have, pay attention to two things at once.
Yeah.
It's like that meme where they insert one brain trip of Ukraine, then the next one is of
Israel.
Israel. Yeah. I mean, that's like the capacity that they can really just go off of.
Right.
If it is a psyop, man, I got a rude awakening. We got a rude awakening for these intel agencies. It's like all of the stuff that's been happening with the manipulation on social media that's propped up woke left psychotic garbage. How do they expect to get military support for Israel when they have themselves coordinated with these big tech platforms to prop up anti-Israel sentiment?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm saying like they're incompetent.
Yep.
Unless it really is some deep 5D chess where they're like, first we make them hate Israel, then we make them like Israel. And I really doubt it. I think the people who are just running this propaganda are just really dumb.
I wish they could rebrand these psyops into something positive and caring about places like East Palestine or Maui, but they won't do that. I don't know.
That's
I don't
always
know
my
why.
question. Are they just incompetent or are they just evil? Like, I just cannot.
I don't think they make money off East Palestine the way they do with this.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's evil taking advantage of a lot of incompetent people.
Right.
And I think there is a psyop component to these things, and there's obviously also organic people who latched on to the psyop, like maybe this person who says, I'm moving on to other things, is a real person.
We went to this tapas restaurant called Barcelona in Reston, Virginia. It was awesome, by the way. We've been there like 3 weeks in a row because it's so good.
Barcelona?
Barcelona.
Yeah.
That's how they say it in
yes,
Catalonia.
Barcelona.
But Barcelona is the name of the restaurant, and we have fans who work there. And I mean, maybe they won't like that I'm saying, I don't know. But the people there were completely open, like, oh, hey, we're big fans. Nice to meet you. And then we went back, and this guy came up and said, he's like, hey, man, I love your show. You're probably not going to get that out here in Reston, but I'm a big fan. Keep it up. And I was like, actually, we've had like 4 or 5 people here shout us out. Mm-hmm. I think the reason I bring that out, I'm not trying to humble brag or anything. The point is, stop thinking you're alone. Mm-hmm. Everyone thinks they're the only one. They're sitting there being like, oh, that's Tim Pool. I watch him. I know no one else does. So I better just say it quietly. No, it turns out everybody there was super cool. Mm-hmm. So too many people are seeing these psyops, seeing the manipulation on social media, and they're assuming, wow, everyone in this country must secretly like trans kids and Ukraine war and stuff. I better keep my mouth shut. And then it turns out everyone actually agrees with you. Nobody likes us wasting money on these foreign wars. There's been no justification for why we're doing it, shifting from Ukraine to the Middle East now. Mm-hmm. So if people just start realizing that, start speaking up, maybe we can put a stop to it.
This is why I advocate for parents when they go on play dates to immediately open up the conversation about all the things you care about the most so you can whittle down who you can have your kids hang out with or not.
I think you should screen all your kids' friends. That does make sense to me.
I got an idea. Here's what we do. An app where you can select things that you believe in politically, and then with your friends, it will only show your political positions if you agree.
It's like public square for
Okay, I'm
friends.
going to tell my developer friend. Did you get that?
So like it'll say, what's your stance on I'm pro-choice, pro-life, progressive taxes, border control. And then if you don't agree on anything, it just doesn't share anything. And then
dating app sort of for
But it's like Bumble.
right?
Bumble
only-
had this.
I'm only-
they had Bumble BFF, which was like for women to meet other women and
I'm
make
not.
friends.
I'm not actually serious for the most part because like you can't implement something like this. But the general idea is, you could input your political views,
Yeah.
and then you don't have to worry about someone being like But the reality is, you should just be able to say, hey, I don't like the fact that in New York they're threatening Jewish people right now.
Yeah.
Maybe they shouldn't do that.
I think you're probably just not as weird as you think you are. I mean, I think a lot of
Yeah.
people feel like because they're not hearing it on mainstream media, maybe other people don't want to talk about it. But
Or just
probably
too afraid to say it out loud. Yeah.
right, probably your views are not that outlandish. You're probably not that dramatic of a person. Like you just believe the things you believe, and if you treat it like it's normal, which it is, other people will follow suit, even if they don't completely agree with you.
So like when I say clouds are fake, it's fine.
Well,
right?
it gives us something to talk about, right?
Yeah.
How are we going to get to know how people feel about
Wait,
this important
clouds are
issue?
fake?
I think the majority of clouds are fake. Yes.
What is it?
That's another
I
subject.
think they've been pumped into the atmosphere or created out of chemtrails, and they just get recycled, and it's just poison falling out of the sky.
I think it's just water vapor.
Well, I think a lot of them, or I think some of them
And
are
how
water
could you
vapor.
build an intellectual conversation
But I-
without these
but I-
differing viewpoints?
But I think we've poisoned our sky to such a
Another
degree.
app idea.
Yeah. I think we've cloud seeded so much that it's hard to tell.
Yeah, but
what's
they
real,
use
what's
lasers
anymore.
for cloud seeding now.
Oh man.
Yeah, they don't need to put chemicals up there.
Maybe, but I'm talking. Maybe it's the vintage clouds. That haven't really got. They're still in the cycle.
See, and the thing is, I don't have a position on cloud, so this is very helpful to help me to learn about this topic.
No, look
right.
it up. Look it up. This is good. We've been seeding clouds for a while. But
For sure, yeah.
We're
But-
doing
but-
different ways now. More
Silver
ethical
iodide
ways.
was the first way they did it, and then they started using, I think 10 years ago, infrared lasers. Lasers to cloud seed.
It must be wild when you go on play dates with your kids, like what you lunch
Yeah,
into.
it's just like this.
What's your view on clouds? Also, our kids don't eat sugar.
Exactly. Or salmon's bioengineered and it's part bug, so don't eat that either.
Well, also, people don't realize that a lot of salmon, when it says wild caught, they grow it in a farm,
Right.
release it into the wild, and then recatch it.
Right.
No joke.
Wait,
Right.
so wild caught.
It can be a lie.
Wait, so then which one do you get? Which one do you get? Because it's not.
So there's things you got to watch out for are if there's a company called like Wild Caught Salmon and Wild Caught is a brand name, then it's
Got
farm.
it.
Or if Wild Caught Salmon is a brand name, is not bad. I'm not saying quite literally that's the case. I'm saying watch out for brand names that masquerade
Yeah.
as
And look for the
descriptions.
colors of salmon too.
Yeah. If you look online, you'll notice that wild salmon's actually not so fatty. So if your salmon is pretty
Right.
fatty, it's probably corn fed or something nonsense.
Right.
But what they'll do is they'll raise salmon in a farm in a big vat. Then they'll dump them in the ocean. Then they'll go with big ships and catch them and say we caught them in the wild.
Yeah. Fukushima is
So
also
wait,
a problem.
to recap, salmons don't like corn. They're not a corn on the cob fan.
I
don't
think
know.
they feed them corn. I'm not entirely sure. But more back to the point. The point I was bringing up initially is that with this story, potentially arguing that many of these pro-Ukraine accounts were psyops, the first thing I'd have to say outside of the context of the story just in general is absolutely the government is running psychological operations on social media to generate support for war.
Yes.
So think about all the accounts right now that are demanding U.S. intervention over Israel. And Elon Musk says he wants to charge $1 per year. It's the only way to get rid of the bots. I don't know if even that will work. All he's going to do is create a more expensive market for bots.
Yep.
Right now, bots are free. You charge $1. What's going to happen is the barrier for entry for bot making goes up. And then the bot companies and contractors will just say, so you wanted how many bots? 3,000? We're increasing our prices by 340% because of Elon Musk's, dollar. So you got to cover the $1 per account. Then you've got to cover the credit card, so it's an extra $15. All in all, it's going to cost you 3 or 4 times more for your bots. And then these organizations go, oh yeah, no problem. I can afford
It
that.
becomes a business expense.
It's just more expensive to do.
Right.
And you think like governments are going to abandon their psyops on Twitter?
No,
way.
they've been
No,
working on those for a
absolutely
long
not.
time.
Yeah.
No, they love psychological operations. They've been performing them on us for forever.
So he's a psyop within a psyop within a psyop.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
you don't know. Maybe the psyop was the psyop the whole time.
Maybe the psyop was the psyop we made along the way.
Getting the psyop to be exposed was the actual intention.
Wow.
Again,
Make you
5D
distrust
chess
what
that I
you're
can't
That
follow.
is Inverted World Season 3. Off I go.
It is kind of hilarious that a few weeks ago we were talking about how I'm looking at the BBC's battle map for Ukraine, And it shows Russia controlling the land bridge into Crimea. And I'm like, that's it. They got what they wanted. And these conservatives are like, that's not true. They wanted all of Ukraine. They were going to invade from the north. And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, we lost. We're done. Everybody out. We're no longer interested in what's going on in Ukraine.
Again, I'd really like to hear more from Zelensky, who is probably so mad about his business venture failing. I do think, we couldn't sustain this, even with Janet Yellen saying we can afford 2 wars. Realistically, no. And also, we could maybe theoretically continue to pay for both things. I know Speaker Johnson was there was a clip of him being asked by journalists, are you going to send more money to Ukraine today? But the reality is, as much as we need financial, it needs the attention span of the American people.
That's right.
And if it's not there, the money won't follow.
They could print all the money they want, but it's the morale they need.
I want to jump to this Twitter thread from Jeff Morris Jr. at JMJ. He's managing partner at Chapter 1. And he writes at The New Internet, former VP of Product at Tinder, VP of Product and Revenue. He says, the TikTok war, why high school and college kids are getting the wrong information about Hamas and Israel. He said, I spent the weekend trying to reverse engineer the TikTok algorithm, as I am convinced this is the reason we are losing the information war with high school and college students. One red flag was seeing San Francisco high school students who were aggressively anti-Israel and asking myself where they were getting their news. Their protests happened right after the fake New York Times headline that accused Israel of the hospital bomb. I also want to pause real quick as well. The Wall Street Journal maintains that the video we see of the rocket exploding in midair and payload falling was what hit the parking lot. The New York Times got the story wrong, apologized, and then came out with another story being like, actually, that video you watched was wrong. Our analysis says that's actually not what hit the hospital. And it's like very convenient for the New York Times, who flubbed this one really, really bad, to be like, actually, we weren't that wrong. So I think the New York Times is full of it. I think the New York Times is a captured organization that is desperately trying to be pro-Hamas. We saw this with the Tom Cotton op-ed. The op-ed editor got fired because Tom Cotton wrote an op-ed about sending the military because of the BLM riots. Yeah. So New York Times, we've known for a long time. Look what Barry Weiss had to say. It is a captured leftist institution. Yeah. Let's read. He says the bigger red flag was seeing 51% of Americans aged 18 to 24 believe Hamas. Terrorists who raped and murdered innocent women and children believe Hamas was justified. My high school classmates who lived through 9/11 would never believe this. That's right. Look at this. You guys seen this chart? He's this graph is actually missing one other important component. Not only do 18 to 24-year-olds in the majority believe it was justified, but in the majority believe it was genocide. So I believe it's 63% of 18 to 24-year-olds believe what Hamas did was genocide, and 51% believe it is justified. That is insane. Wow. Let's read more. He says, why do high school students in San Francisco hate Israel so much? I'd assume very few of them have been to Israel, let alone have a fully formed view of a multi-generational conflict. They're 16 years old and live in California. Let's be serious for a minute.
Really?
For Gen Z, TikTok is the new search engine. It's the #1 search engine for more than half of Gen Z. It's the primary news source for many younger demos. And while we have justifiable concerns about the New York Times and mainstream media, this has become a TikTok war. What I discovered through data and user testing, what I have discovered is extremely concerning and I believe requires more attention, as this is an actual national security issue. When I engaged with one post on TikTok supporting opposing views, my entire feed became aggressively anti-Israel. It was as if I was placed in an A/B test variant and was told to see this war with Israel being the evil side. As I looked at the tactics and data, I saw that much of TikTok is being controlled by anti-Israel bot farms, paid commenters, likers, sharers, much of which is paid for by Hamas supporting organizations. I then looked at the data and saw that Israel is losing the TikTok war by a long shot. As an example, the top 3 billion top hashtag is 3 billion views for Palestine versus 200 million for Israel. If you look at the other hashtags, it is clear that Israel has a distribution issue. So he goes on a bit, but you get the point. He says he's still researching. I actually think the point is this. China is trying to get the U.S. into multiple wars at once. And the purpose of this is get the U.S. into war in Ukraine, in the Mediterranean, and itself. This is going to create a massive conflict in the U.S. Look what we're seeing with Cooper Union yesterday. Ron Coleman made a really important point. A video of Jewish students locked in the library as far leftists are banging on the door screaming Free Palestine. And the latest reporting that came out is that I believe it was the librarian, told these students to hide in the attic. I kid you not.
Wow.
Now I'm wondering what attic is in the building, and if they're just saying that because it's like invoking some serious images, But how does something like that happen where these are just some Jewish students in New York, and Ron Coleman says they're not Israeli students?
Right.
That's right. The leftists did not go to the room where Israelis were. They went to the room where the Jewish students were, banging on the door and screaming Free Palestine. They don't see a distinction. So I actually think this is, hey, it's TikTok. It's China. And we get these doofy Republicans who are like, they're spying on us. No, dude, they're manipulating young people. Hey, we're banned on TikTok. I wonder why that is.
Me too.
You're on TikTok a lot, you said before the show. Is this what you're seeing too?
I am on TikTok.
Oh, sorry. Did I just expose you?
No. I am on TikTok. I got banned a couple times. Carly Bonet, who helps push war room stuff, she's been banned like 25 times. We just started a war room one, and they ban war room all the time. Anything that is, I guess any of that. So
And you don't really scroll through it yourself. You just use it for war room.
I have my own personal one too.
Yeah. Are you seeing it in your algorithm? I'm wondering. I'm asking,
yeah.
I'm asking because
totally.
if it's complete takeover or if it's targeted to young people.
Yeah, it is. It's a takeover, and I see even in the live streams they have like the live whatevers. It's all pro Palestine, like just like it, all of it.
I've wondered, and I can't remember who made this point in the past week that I've been on IRL, that one of the things that happened post 9/11 was that to avoid encouraging an anti-Islam, anti-Muslim sentiment, textbook companies partnered with organizations that are pro-Islam, and there is an influence there.
I believe it almost, and it could be part of the algorithm, but like if I watch one, video about like, oh, this is what's really happening, and it's that I'll just see all those
keep
videos.
going.
Yeah.
It makes me
That's
wonder
really
if
what it is.
students are particularly vulnerable because of this precaution that was potentially taken when they were publishing textbooks post 9/11, in addition to the fact that it's being pushed on them on social media. So there's no narrative, right? If you, I felt like this. I grew up in a liberal blue area, and I always leaned conservative. And I remember there were times in school where you're being taught something, but you're reading something different at home. The conversations are different among your family. You can kind of, to question it. Whereas if it's hitting you from social media, which is basically how you run your entire after school life, maybe in school too, and your teachers are presenting information that says, actually this is how this conflict started, and, this side gets this wrong and whatever. If there is no escape, if there's no way for them to see on the outside, unless they have family in Israel, unless they have a connection somewhere else.
I have only seen pro Hamas type videos on TikTok.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised with the college stuff, because I think they were all primed for this after the riot summer with BLM, and this is just like an extension of that. So they see violence as righteous.
And they were young. If you're a high school student now in 2020, if you're 17 now, you were 13. That's like the end of middle school, and so you grew up in a time where social media and really outlandish protests that verge on the point of destruction and violence are the norm, and perhaps even celebrated. That it was cool that all of your friends, older siblings, were getting likes for attending these things and throwing bricks through windows or whatever else.
It's the cultural revolution. It's the Red Guard.
Yeah, and they've been waiting. They've been waiting to have their chance to have something big to protest about.
To want violence, right? Even though it's the same crowd that says silence is violence or words are violence.
These are, Will Chamberlain pointed out, these are people who cheered, not every single one, but in New York City, cheered for Hamas, and are now, because of what's going on in Maine, arguing to disarm people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It
'Cause
seems wild.
They hate their political enemies, and they have no moral center, and they'll say whatever they have to do to destroy their political enemies.
How about Hamas breaks through the barriers, paraglides in, murders a bunch of civilians and men, women, and children, and then Israel strikes Gaza. When Hamas storms in, what do we see? We see people in New York City cheering for the killing of civilians. Then when Israel bombs Palestine, we see these people saying, they bomb Gaza, they say, oh no, they're killing civilians, and they're crying and saying, how could you support this? And I'm just like, bro, you were supporting it.
Yeah. It's okay when it happens to someone else's civilians.
Gaza, Israel, people, okay? Like I'm not Israel or Palestine or whatever. All I know is people are dying. But y'all were celebrating civilians dying, and now you're complaining about civilians dying. I don't think you actually care about civilians dying.
Right.
No, I don't think so either. I think there's also a level of one of the things that I have heard told over and over again is that one of the reasons people say you should support Palestine, support Hamas or whatever is because they're being colonized, right? They're the colonizer oppressing them. And this is actually very similar to the language that we hear with BLM and with other...
It's critical race theory.
Right, exactly. And so if all of our young people are trained sort of a la Pavlov and his dog, that when they hear a certain word, they know exactly how they're supposed to respond. They know how to fall in line. Right. If you hear colonizer, you know which side you're supposed to be on, because in our history, which is the only lens they're allowed to, they can view it through. Yep. And part of that, I would say, is probably immaturity, right? It's they haven't experienced the world. They don't know anything. But also, they are only ever allowed to hear certain terms and line up on certain sides.
It's all indoctrination. I mean, you go back to Japanese Korean culture, like way back when. I mean, Japanese colonized Korea, I mean, there's colonizers everywhere.
So would the modern day teenager be on Korea's side?
That's a good question. I haven't thought about that.
That's the word they hear. And
I haven't thought about that.
That's how they know how to line up. I think part of it is that there's not a lot of critical analysis. They just want to have the viral moment. And again, I've said this before, but that story about the student who wrote Black Lives Matters, however many times on his college application and got admitted to whatever Ivy League. Like, these kids are going to present their TikToks being like, I got every one of my school to dance on the pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas rally. And so I'm very, very important and you should let me into your school. Like, this is what they think will build their potential activist future on, which is linked to both their social value and their intellectual value.
The views of these students will never change. I mean, in small numbers, for sure, people do change, but what people need to understand about generations is that when we see, according to Pew Research, Gen Z being slightly more conservative than millennials in some areas, they assume this means that Gen Z is learning these things, when in reality, it's just conservatives have more kids. More kids are being raised. These young people who are chanting from the river to the sea, it's locked in. They've chanted it. They've said it. It's part of who they are. And it will be painful to admit they were wrong. Only some people ever have the strength to actually go through these transformations and be like, what was I thinking? Yeah. Most of them, when they're in their 30s, are going to be part of extremist groups in some fashion or another.
This is why, we were talking last time about Marxism and in the college world. And then, I'm thinking of like domestic terrorists such as the Weather Underground, literally blowing people up, and they're avowed Marxists. They're very open about it. They eventually go to jail. People like Bill Ayers or Susan Rosenberg. Susan Rosenberg gets pardoned by Bill Clinton on his last day in office. She becomes a professor. She's espousing all those things. They all are. They eventually, even my beloved Cuomo, mass murderer in New York, let out on his last day in office, a Weather Underground person who built a bomb and killed people. They take over the colleges. There's a lot of them. They breed this world where they talk about how Marxism will be the paradise for people. But anyway, Susan Rosenberg, what does she do other than being a professor? She starts 1,000 Currents and then Act Blue. What does Act Blue do? They help siphon the money for Black Lives Matter, which in my opinion is another domestic terrorist organization. So it's like, I just see a straight line through all of this where that's the kind of violence that those campuses breed.
I think Veritas had a report, I want to be very careful with my language here, alleging that China was funneling money to political parties through Act Blue. I'm not entirely sure what the reporting was, but
I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised either.
Yeah.
I think that was a big story. I just don't have it pulled up in front of me.
I wouldn't be surprised with through colleges. A lot of colleges rely, especially small colleges, rely on foreign donations to make their quotas at the end of the year.
I mean, you have so many foreign students from China, just
Didn't we have professors during COVID getting arrested for ties to China for certain things? I forget, it was espionage or what they were doing, or there was like some guy with a suitcase and viruses in it. I mean, it was crazy stuff was going on back then.
You have to send me a link because I don't know that one.
Yeah, that's a deep cut from like 3 years ago.
I mean, that was the thing about COVID though. There was both so much happening. Serge
I remember that. You're talking about like there was a person that was traveling with like
viruses
other
you shouldn't have.
Viruses. Yeah, yes. Right. And they somehow like fell out because they were carrying them in some way that was made it like it was very sketchy.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Totally remember that as well.
Fell out or they fell out?
It's O'Keefe Media Group 4 months ago. FEC story update: Chinese money involved in Act Blue donations. Is exactly what it said.
There you go.
Yeah.
Chinese money's everywhere.
And Xi's the new Mao, and Mao's Cultural Revolution, and Bill Ayers and Weather Underground look up to Mao. I see that as the poison that's destroying this country.
I think one of the problems we have is children are being raised by children and now by algorithms, and adults want to be children.
That is also true.
Where is Gen X? We need Gen X.
Where are they? I mean, what are they up to?
I'm Zillennial. So
I don't even know if generations matter anymore because social media has flattened everyone down into one.
But it does.
You know, it does.
I
It
feel
should.
like it matters.
Gen
It
Z
should.
that has like all generations, they have their style, their slang, their music.
Yep.
I believe it may be one of the last generations to experience something like this
Mm-hmm.
because of the decline in population. I don't know if this is true, but I saw a report that Italy didn't record a birth for like 3 months or something.
I saw that, but
Is
I
that true?
haven't verified it yet.
Right, I just saw a tweet.
It is interesting though.
So, let's just assume it's not true. Fertility rates have massively collapsed.
Wow.
And if we're below, I got bad news for Gen Z. If we are below, maybe not so Gen Z, but Gen Alpha. If we're below replacement rate reproduction, that means that there will be more millennials than Gen Z, more millennials than Gen Alpha. That means that the interests of the economy will favor the larger generations. So typically what you see is a lot of companies will try to bend, they try to get woke because they're like, we got to be hip with the kids. When I worked for Fusion, that was the thing. They were like, look, we're targeting young people. They're more progressive. So that's what we're going to do. And boy, were they wrong. That was not what the data was showing. And they imploded because of it. But they didn't actually care or believe in any of these things. They just thought we got to go where the kids are. Shane Smith of Vice, he's like in his mid 30s when Vice is starting to take off. He's in his mid 40s when it really takes off. And he's making content that was targeting people in their 20s. That was the mentality that a lot of these big companies had. That's not going to be the case. You're going to launch a company and you're going to say, what's the biggest market share we can get? And they're going to say, well, we got, 75 million Gen Z, we got 50 million Gen Alpha, and we got 100 million millennials. Well, screw it, go for the millennials.
what about Gen X?
Well, I'm saying like Gen X is going to be out of the at this
Gen
point.
X.
When
out.
Gen Alpha is in the marketplace, Gen X is phased out. So I'm talking about Gen Alpha in their late teens and into their 20s. Millennials are going to be in their late 50s, and they're
Right.
going to be exiting. Gen X is already going to be out in retirement. Less of a consideration in terms of big ad spends. But this means that millennials are going to continually hold a disproportionate amount of market power because of the size of the generation.
True.
So I'm not as concerned with seeing a bunch of crackpot young kids because the likelihood, what I see being what may happen is, as the market seeks to pander to the larger block of the market share, these kids are going to have to adhere and change to fit the mold of what millennials want, and not the other way around, right? So I think one of the reasons adults want to be kids, like that Abe Simpson meme, I used to be with it, and then they changed what it was, and Homer's like, that'll never happen to me, man. It's because you're watching TV and you're watching what you perceive as social acceptance. What does everyone love? They love the rock star. I want to be like the rock star. Only thing is, rock star is now 20 years younger than you. So you get those midlife crises where it's like, I'm hip, I can be cool. What if cool was just what you were? What if the dad jeans and Rolling Stones never faded out of pop culture, out of the spotlight? I think there's going to be pockets of fame and personality among young people, obviously because of their peer groups. But if the money is, if you're going to make $100 million by doing a Fall Out Boy show, or how about this, the When We Were Young tour, if they make more money doing that, then what's going to happen is, where's the ad spend going to be? Big marketing companies are going to be like, look, this Gen Z thing is good, but we can maybe make $20 million. But this When We Were Young thing, these people got money, and there's more of them. You could argue that back in the day, but hold on, older people always had more money. Yes, and they had kids, and they spent that money on their kids. And now millennials don't have kids, and they're spending the money on themselves. So it's going to get real interesting real soon.
Yeah, I think you're really cultivating towards the millennials. I found Gen Z really interesting, and I can't tell if this is just sort of a biased view through the lens of social media, but it seems like they are really burning through every generational fashion trend. You'll get these enclaves of girls who are really into 70s stuff or really into the early 2000s, or like 90s grunge core was very popular for a second during COVID and then it kind of went away. I mean, they are searching for generational identity and I don't think they are creating one for themselves. They have language and they have social media, but social media isn't enough to actually have a generational culture.
Right.
When I was a kid, a Nirvana shirt was a band that was playing music at the time. And then, not for a time after that in the late 90s, but like people would have the holes in their jeans in the Nirvana shirt when Nirvana was releasing music. It's really funny to see that viral TikTok where that like 18-year-old girl, she's wearing a Nirvana shirt. She's like, I don't even know what this is. It's just like, it's at Hot Topic and everyone wears it.
Yeah, but then
relic.
some millennial mom also buys them
Dude,
for her like toddlers
listen.
and then chase them around being like, name 3 songs.
What I am telling you is not predictive. It is descriptive. Go to the mall. Yo, I go to the mall and Hot Topic's got Nightmare Before Christmas. What year did that movie come out? 1993 or something?
Yeah.
And I see Gen Alpha, Gen Z wearing like Nightmare Before Christmas stuff. And I'm like, they don't have their own, like you were saying, generational identity.
They don't.
We do. Night Before Christmas, that was millennial.
That was us.
And I think it's because they have to spend all their time
Gen
online.
X. I'm Gen X. I'm Gen X.
How old are you?
Oh, Tim.
Well, you said you're Gen X. You got to answer.
I'm a zillennial, so I'm in between.
But so you were old enough to be part of the people who were wearing the Jack Skellington shirts and stuff.
Yeah.
It's crazy now to see young people making videos where they're wearing Nirvana and Night Before Christmas. Now, don't get me wrong. When I was growing up, I also had like my mom had a bunch of Zeppelin shirts, Grand Funk Railroad, whatever, Doobie Brothers. I don't know. I didn't know what that stuff was. 80s music, but it's different. It's you go to the mall and it's not modern new stuff. When I was a kid, and went to the mall. Night Before Christmas was new. You went to Hot Topic and it was like, here's new things.
Right.
Now I go in, it's Bleach and Naruto, and I'm like, dude, that was 20 years ago.
It's stalled.
I don't even know what that
creatively
is.
stalled, which I think is
I don't
crazy.
know if it's stalled so much.
Anime.
I feel like it's
Anime, okay.
nostalgia is like a drug of complacency, and a lot of people, like a lot of millennials and people our age, even older and younger, they just want to live like Tim's saying as adult babies. So they are dressing themselves like they did when they were babies.
I think that explains older people, but for Gen Z, they should be serving up something that they can replace,
should be.
right? And they're not. And I think some of that, and this is just my maybe touch grass moment here, but I think some of it is because they spend so much time online looking for what's trendy instead of going out and making trendy things,
they're even
right?
on a worse drug. That's regurgitated.
There's no
nostalgia.
nucleus.
No, there's nothing.
No, and
Yeah.
And to be fair, COVID wrecked some of it for Gen Z because the leaders of Gen Z all had to then go home and then spend more time on the internet and not with each
And
other.
they're just like Googling stuff.
So-
That's why Y2K took off. We started
This-
wearing Y2K stuff because that was then when they were kids and look at us like retro.
I learned
now.
this like Gen Z pause. When you make a video, you know how sometimes they're like, hi, the Gen Z pause, hi. Like there's so many
differently.
rules.
Wow, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
or
to,
they,
like,
they put text really small on videos. That's something that
It's, like,
millennials
to
don't
the
do.
point.
Yeah, but it's to make you look at the thing for longer.
Right.
I mean, they're crazy, but it's all driven by social media in
last-
a way that no generation has been.
1990 was the 90s were the last decade.
I love the 90s.
90s were peak human existence.
It was the
It
last.
was.
It was the
It was peak America.
There's younger people listening who are like those old.
tell me about the 90s,
folks.
guys.
Yeah, it's
No,
you.
but listen.
Paris Hilton, man, the juicy couture.
Everybody can argue about the generation they like, and for millennials and Gen Xers who had like formative years in the 90s are going to say the 90s were great. The 80s were kind of weird. The 70s had their time. The 60s had their time. But these are discernible generations, are decades. You look at styles. Someone can show you a picture of a living room, and you'll be like, oh, that was the 50s. Someone can show you the picture of a diner and be like, that's 70s. Someone can show you a picture of a guy, just a guy wearing clothes, and you'll be like, that was the 80s. He's wearing like neon leopard print hot pants, and you're like, we know when that was.
Feathery hair.
And the 90s.
Yep.
And then the 2000s happened. And there are some things like, how about, I say some things because.
Skinny jeans and ballet flats,
No,
man.
it started to break apart.
Yeah.
So wearing a long sleeve shirt with a short sleeve shirt over it, but that only was in certain areas of the millennial generation.
Yeah, for sure.
I wonder if it's because of the internet, but we're downstairs hanging out in the green room before the show, and I'm like, I tell the TV to play top songs from the 80s, and everybody knows the songs, and it's like Shout comes on, and of course, Tears for Fears, and I'm like, just put on Tears for Fears on loop, baby.
Here, I was like 90s. It was like Audio Slave. I think you were playing.
What were we playing? No. I was playing.
Soundgarden?
No, it was
Soundgarden.
Toadies, Possum Kingdom.
Oh, nice.
And Do You Wanna Die?
Yeah,
Love that song.
I love that song.
And so I'm driving in my car, and we put on 90s playlist. Every song that comes on, we're like, man, I know this song. And then I was like, well, we've done 80s, we've done 70s, because the 70s, you got a bunch of hits, of course. And then I said, put on hits from the 2000s. I knew none of it.
Well, 2000s
It was
is
like,
like
what is
Britney
this?
Spears, NSYNC.
Sort of.
I don't know who else.
But wasn't that late 90s?
Ja
I
Rule.
think of that as being early.
Yeah,
was
but
late-
into the
that was
early
Nelly.
2000s.
Yep.
Yeah, Nelly.
Yeah.
Nelly. It was much more
When was
pop.
Usher big? He was around for a minute.
Usher, he's about to be big again because the halftime show.
Yes, there's no stopping Usher.
I think it's
Yeah.
the internet.
Creed.
And
Jack Posobiec. Creed.
That's
I think that was
90s.
night.
That is nice.
Creed is 90s
Okay.
for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's because of the internet.
Yeah.
And what happened was the reason we all knew these songs is because there was only like 5 places to get the songs.
Yes.
But I noticed this when I was younger and I started getting really angry. It's the 2000s. I'm a teenager, and Q101, the radio station in Chicago, was only playing Stone Temple
K-Rock.
Pilots.
Yeah. Oh no, K-Rock is LA, right?
It
Yeah,
was playing Stone Temple Pilots.
Okay.
Basically, no matter what you do, you get Stone Temple Pilots and you get Pearl Jam. And I'm like, dude, that song is like 12 years old. And then I remember coming back like a few years ago, and I was like, wow, they're playing music from 30 years ago.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
And it's like rock, alternative rock. And I'm like, yeah, it's an oldies station. Dude, when I was a kid, we had the oldies station, oldies 104.3, and it's the 90s,
that shit,
and they'd play songs from the 50s and 60s. So now if you're playing music from the 90s and the 80s, like you're oldies,
Right.
dude.
Oh, and
Did
my
you
kid-
listen to 96.3?
In Chicago? Oh, B96.
B96.
Of course. Oh, B96, man.
That was my
See,
jam.
I feel like I didn't really grow up listening to the radio, and so I feel like I missed all kinds of
I
musical
listened to the radio on the way
references.
here. I still like the radio.
Oh, see, I just listen to NPR all the time because I'm on
Still?
NPR. Oh yeah, for sure.
Wow. Why do you
don't-
torture yourself?
The thing is, it's good to see what
I
other
agree.
people are doing and how they're presenting things.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was when I got my license, because I'm a nerd. When I got my driver's license at 16 or whatever, I would drive around listening to This American Life, which I thought was such an interesting.
It was a great
Yeah,
show.
It
yeah.
was a
back then.
great
Yes.
show. And then I tried to listen to it as a podcast in podcast format recently, and it was just so different. And I feel like in some ways, if you were, a music connoisseur in the 90s and 80s, and you're like, this is really good music, any recreation, because obviously your favorite bands will have their moment and die down. The ones that come after them are not good enough to feel like they're carrying on the tradition.
Right.
And so in some ways, these traditions of, I think this was like big band music, they just die, partially because they go out of fashion, but also because there isn't anyone who's able to carry on the torch effectively.
Yeah, I still I think radio's great. And like when I travel so much, I'm driving so much, I like listening to radio in different areas to see like what they're listening to and
Regional
stuff.
radio.
Yep.
Regional radio is how you find.
Oh, dude,
Amazing.
road trips were so fun when like you'd start to lose a radio
channel.
station,
Yeah.
and then you'd try and look for the next one,
Yes.
and then all of a sudden it's like you start hearing both at the same time, and then we're driving, and I'm hearing like Blink-182 on the radio. What's my age again? And then it's like, well, I just got back home, and I'm like, whoa, this is
You're seeing the
dope.
cross section of culture.
love
that was
that.
my experience when I first started coming down to West Virginia during 2020, because there's nothing to do. So I did a lot of driving around, and I was with someone, and we got like 4 stations back to back that were all just like very typical, what I would call pop punk. And this friend like turned to me and he was like, West Virginia, where pop punk never died.
101.5,
I think
baby.
it's so
Bob
funny
rocks.
because there are, I mean, in some ways it makes me wonder. I talk a little bit about on the show about regionalism and how there is regional culture in America, which is largely due to foundational immigration, and how we do lose it, especially as the internet becomes more
Streaming
popular.
culture.
But maybe the radio is what keeps regional local culture alive.
Right. We lost regional diction because of television, because of national television.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to look. If I'm going to appeal to the entire country, you got to lose the accent or whatever. And I think with the internet, you've basically taken away. You've reversed this.
Yeah.
So now you've got all of these different subcultures to the point where some of them are getting really, really weird. Really weird and
Super
creepy.
weird.
People dressing
I
up
mean,
like
it is the
animals and doing
internet.
weird things. Yeah, but like, back in the day, we want people who do nasty, gross things to keep that to themselves.
Yeah.
The weird costumes they wear and they go out in public. There's a viral video of a guy dressing like a baby in a diaper going out and chugging on a bottle and filming other people and then talking about how it's getting him off. I'm like, we want people like that not to be able to post these things, and like that guy would never be on TV. No. So most people got their culture from very few sources. So everybody recognized something, and that builds it builds a connection. When what's the song Sweet Caroline? What's the name of the
Sweet
song?
Caroline,
It's
yeah.
it's not the name of the
Another
song.
song, but that's the
Everybody knows it, and they play it at the baseball stadium. Everyone goes ba ba ba.
That's not the track.
What about modern?
Sweet Caroline.
Yeah. So I'm at we're at a pool hall. I put on a bunch of music going back from like the 70s till now, and sure enough, when I put on Bohemian Rhapsody, the entire bar starts singing. And then someone was like, who did it? And they're like, yeah, and we're all singing Bohemian Rhapsody. It was fun. And then I put on a few other, hits or whatever, and you've got people sporadically singing. Then I put on modern rock, and everyone just tunes out. Nobody knows what it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Modern as in like right now or
Like
early
music,
2000s?
like 2010s rock songs and stuff.
Yeah.
Things that I enjoy.
I think the only
Muse,
things
for instance.
people would know, and it would depend on what age group is at the bar, are some of the really big hits that were like popular viral dance
Gangnam
videos
Style.
during 2020 2020,
But
right?
not even Taylor Swift. People are singing.
Yeah,
like
but that's
if
because
you-
you just listen, you really reflect on the philosophy there. And like,
But like there's like what's like everybody knows.
The Macarena.
But Mr. Brightside with the Killers.
Mr. Brightside, that's a big
Great
one.
song.
Yeah, there's stuff that's.
But I don't. Nobody sings that.
Oh yeah, of course.
No,
they
people
sing it.
sing
That's the
that.
difference.
When
yeah.
I'm at the
Bon
bar, I
Jovi,
play
Living
that.
on a Prayer.
Some people are like, I hate Mr. Brightside. It's like I just can't stand that song.
Yeah, same.
But maybe
I
the
love it.
nostalgia's not there.
Same.
Yeah,
I love that
I
song.
only know people who sing to it.
Let's
Maybe
talk-
that's a cultural divide.
I want to talk to you guys about the future.
Oh no.
I would prefer.
We have the story from Ars Technica. California suspends cruise robo-taxis after car dragged pedestrian 20 feet. Horrifying hit and run triggers California suspension of cruise robo-taxis. Most people don't know this. This is the craziest thing. We don't really talk about it that much, but in San Francisco, there are taxis with no drivers. Right? Did you guys know that? It's been some time, and it's just never been big news that, oh yeah, that thing, yeah, well, it happened. Cars are driving themselves, and the car will pull up, you'll get in, and it'll drive you to your destination. There's nobody there. Well, this car ran somebody over, dragged them, and kept them pinned as they screamed for mercy and help. And the car didn't care because it can't. They say less than 3 months after the California Public Utilities Commission approved robo-taxi service, Cruise's plan to provide around-the-clock driverless riders. In San Francisco, the California Department of Motor Vehicles has shut down Cruise's driverless operations. The suspension followed 2 notable accidents involving Cruise's robo-taxis. In August, 1 person was injured after a Cruise vehicle crashed into a fire truck. And earlier this month, a pedestrian using a crosswalk was found in critical condition after a driver of another vehicle struck the pedestrian and threw her into the path of an oncoming Cruise robo-taxi. The hit-and-run incident is still being investigated. According to Cruise, its autonomous vehicle detected the collision and stopped on top of the pedestrian, then veered off the road, dragging the pedestrian another 20 feet. When the AV finally stopped, it appeared to pin the pedestrian's leg beneath a tire, while videos show the pedestrian screaming for help. Wow. So this one, wow.
The dystopia is here.
Guys, did you know that MGM, let me check the app real quick. Did you know that MGM casinos they were hacked, and they've not come back. They've announced like much of it is back to normal. But for those that aren't familiar, if you're into playing poker, there's an app called Bravo. There's a couple of them. Bravo tracks the available poker rooms around you. Okay, as of right now, MGM's app is live once again. But for I think like a month or two, it was down. Whoa. Their computer systems got hacked. The entire MGM networks from Vegas to DC, wherever, I don't know where their other casinos are. And everything was in cash. They I think they got phished. Someone sent them an email. They clicked the link, installed the ransomware on their computers, which infected the entire network. And they said, pay us millions of dollars. Otherwise, we shut you down. They said, we will not pay. The entire casino network got shut down. I would like you to imagine this scenario. MGM does not operate autonomous machines that weigh a ton. MGM has a bunch of, well, technically, I guess you could say they do. They have slot machines. I don't know if they weigh a ton, but they're not mobile. These robo-taxi companies, you are going to have a fleet of AI automated driverless cars. And what happens when an employee clicks a link, installs ransomware on their servers, and then all of the robo-taxis are locked and can't be altered in any way. And they say, we're not paying the ransom. And the cars just start driving around with no human control or input. I suppose the argument will be like, we can do nothing to stop the cars. They're going to keep operating as they do, and maybe they just pick people up and drop them off. But with the ransomware, what's to stop someone from just controlling the entirety of the fleet with a single malware link and then making all the cars, I don't know, drive into the bay?
It's a Black Mirror
people in them?
episode. It's a Black Mirror episode.
Right.
Honestly, this is why I'm not getting the Neuralink.
Yeah, I mean,
Honestly.
I would
Oh, you don't
never
have a
do that.
choice.
Well, I'm also going to be Amish
Instead
in
of
about a year,
mandating
so
the vax, Tim is mandating the Neuralink for all of
great.
us. It's a company.
Great.
No, just kidding.
I'm going to be a recluse in the woods.
It's just really
it's terrifying.
scary.
It's
I
terrifying.
mean,
Terrifying.
it's yeah.
If it can happen to that,
The
it can happen to anything.
Neuralink, I'm against it, but I'm like,
Uh-oh.
no. What? No. Okay.
You know what the woke leftists are going to do with Neuralink? They're so right with Neuralink you can, if you get read-write capabilities and you can enter a metaverse where you can actually experience like a real alternate reality, all of these woke leftists are going to go into the metaverse and create white men avatars.
Yeah, their Marxist paradise will be in the metaverse.
Well, I mean, look, if you were gonna go into a video, if you're gonna make a video game, and someone said you can choose between these 5 different characters, you've got the fighter, the barbarian, the bard, the cleric, the monk, and if you choose barbarian, you get double the experience, you get double the HP, you get double the resources, double the money. Everyone agrees with you, and the game's super easy. You'd be like, well, maybe I want the challenge, but a lot of people are going to be like, oh, look, I'll take the strong guy. His stats are way better. So if the leftist argument is, white privilege, they will choose to play as white people in the metaverse.
Yeah.
Doesn't recognize their privilege in the metaverse.
Let's put it this way. I'm not even talking about a video game with stats or something.
Right.
Imagine someone is working in the metaverse. Jobs are digital. Do you think these woke leftists are going to choose non-white avatars? Or do you think they're going to be like, there's going to be like a Hispanic woman who's super woke and she'd be like, if I make a white male avatar, I'll get hired.
Right. Well, the rules of intersectionality apply in the metaverse.
But who's
Well,
going
the
to
ultimate-
legislate all of it? Like Congress? Like they can't even get Facebook right,
Right. Good luck.
I mean, so
The self-driving cars really freak me out for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, same here.
I
would
never
never.
want anyone I love to get in one, and I understand there could be maybe an argument that they are helpful, that they make it so women can stay at work longer instead of driving their kids around or whatever thing the utopian left is trying to sell. But ultimately, anything controlled by a computer is subjective to failure, and there's no way to protect against that.
I mean, humans go rogue too, but I wonder if the reason they're destroying San Francisco is to create a test city for all the weird robot crap they're doing.
In Neo,
Like,
San
Emphasis
Francisco.
on crap.
Did you see they have those robot food delivery bots?
Yes.
And some dude was going around, they were
Kicking
just
it?
flipping them over,
Yeah.
destroying them and then stealing the food.
Yes.
Was it San
You can't-
Francisco who has the robot
all
dog
over.
police, or is that another place in California?
bro,
It's like food delivery.
Apparently you can buy those robot dogs now and they're not that expensive. I mean, they're expensive, don't get me wrong,
What
but
would
they're
you
like,
name one? What would you name a robot dog?
Sparky.
no, it's gotta be something like Endbringer.
Because
And here he is. Let's bring him in right now. Tim's new robot dog.
Well, right, because it's like, the herald of the end of days. You know what I mean?
I mean, Harold, end of the end of days.
yeah, that's
we just
good.
all call him Harold.
Well, instead of herald, you can just use a word that represents the sound made. So
I like
Trump.
Harold.
They had some in LA, downtown LA, and really just people they just kicked it all over.
Yeah, the
I
delivery,
mean,
the little
yeah.
delivery.
I think
Yeah.
I'm sorry, like the people smashing the robot food delivery things. I get it; it's wrong. Don't break other people's stuff, but it is kind of hilarious.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
funny.
Like
I thought it was the funniest thing ever.
it's so dystopian. These
Yeah.
Yes.
massive tech companies that are ultra woke and funding these horrible policies build these robots to deliver food to get rid of labor.
And don't be
then,
coming to downtown LA where there's so many homeless people.
Oh, yeah, it's
out
the
there,
worst-
you know?
the worst
And,
Teslas ever.
yeah.
This is the future. It's like I
Yeah.
watched Elysium today and I was making fun of it. You guys ever see Elysium?
Yeah, yeah.
I like it. It's good.
What is it?
I
If it's scary, I won't watch it.
no, it's a sci-fi with Matt Damon. And Earth is overpopulated and everyone lives in squalor and the ultra wealthy live in an orbital space station paradise called Elysium. And I'm just like, this movie is such leftist propaganda. And it is.
Yeah, it
Because
is.
like the rich people have a machine that can cure any disease. And the only reason they don't give it to the poor is because they don't want to.
That's classic
like-
rich people behavior.
Right.
They're just like that.
Right. They just don't want to give people the cure. It's like, let them die. And like, okay, no, like the reality is in the real world, it's scarcity. But seeing that and then seeing stuff like this, I'm like, it's not that far off where you're going to have 90% of people are homeless like street urchin types running around smashing
Yes.
autonomous food delivery to find food. And it's going to be this weirdest thing where like the companies that do the food delivery will have flying drones delivering food to other wealthy people who live on the top of towers. And when the homeless 90% chuck rocks at it to knock it down to get food. The companies say, yeah, it's fine though, because we don't have employees, we save so much money. The cost of the food absorbs all of the damages
It's a business
from
expense. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so when Amazon opened that store where you didn't have any staff
Oh, yeah, Amazon Go.
and you could just walk in and grab whatever you wanted, I very easily
Which was the weirdest thing. Have you ever tried
they're
that?
all over. Yes. And so
Oh my God. I freaked
the
out.
moment they opened it, I immediately discovered an exploit to be able to get whatever you want for free. And so we did a test run where we were able to trick the system into giving me a massive bag of groceries free of charge. Now, don't get me wrong, we did pay for everything, but without going into great details about what we did because
You
less
want
people repeat
replicated?
it.
Yeah.
When I talked to Amazon, the general answer that I got was, we don't care about shoplifting. We save so much money by not having employees that shoplifting is negligible to us.
Right.
Wow.
I find myself when I go to the grocery store and there are the self-checkout lanes and then there are ones with the employees, I find myself wanting to go to where the employees are because I just feel like they're
I do
getting
too.
deleted.
I do too,
Even if it's
yeah.
faster, I feel like there's some sort of like loyalty to humanity, like another human person with a job. I need you to be there so that you have your job so we can continue doing this. Otherwise, it's just like deleting people all the time.
Yeah, I've heard
Totally.
also part of it is that companies don't have to deal with any wastage now. They have all those products that are going to be going bad whenever they have to deal with that stuff because people that are like getting it shoplifted, they don't have to worry about getting rid of the products after the fact. People just take it. So it's like they're like, whatever. Well, there's more. Except now it's like
That way they don't
amount
have to
is
pay someone to take it off the shelf
Right,
to remove
exactly,
it. So
exactly.
again,
It's
just
actually cheaper.
deleting
So-
people this way.
Yeah.
I
This
put
is
up.
why I say the 90s is the best. Just the best.
It was the last. I put up. I made a video when we did this where in one continuous shot, I take my bag of groceries, exit, walk a block away, set it down, pull out all of the food, and then wait for the Amazon app to confirm the purchase. And it said I bought a pack of gum, and I had
No,
like,
that happened to me too. I had like a whole cart. It was like in Buffalo Grove when I was visiting my parents. It was the weirdest thing. I was like so weirded out that we just walked in and I walked out and they calculated everything. And it became like, it was like $5 because they didn't.
calculate properly.
Yeah.
Well, for us, we intentionally found a way to exploit Amazon's system.
Okay. I didn't
We
even.
intentionally made it ring me up for a pack of gum when I had a full bag of groceries.
Wow.
Because
yeah.
but they don't care. And so recently at DCA Airport, they now have an Amazon Go sensors all along the ceiling. You scan your hand, you walk in, take whatever you want, and walk out.
Nice.
No,
I'm not
hand
doing that
scanning.
whole scan hand thing.
No.
no.
I resisted when the iPhone like had you put your thumbprint in so you could like open your home button. I didn't like that for the longest time.
I think I would say we probably found 4 different exploits for this system where potentially if you keep doing it over and over again, they're going to call the police on you and the cops are going to come and be like, this is not an accident, you're doing this on purpose.
Right.
But there's probably 4 different exploits for getting whatever you want for free.
It's crazy.
I do not recommend doing it, but you got to ask Amazon what their policies are because apparently, like, there have been statements about like they don't care if people take whatever they want.
Yeah.
And like
I've heard numerous times.
the argument made is, how do you prove it's shoplifting if you tell the people to take whatever they want and walk out?
Yeah, seriously.
I don't know. I
Right.
mean, theoretically, they have to post. I'm trying to think of like comparing it to like trespassing or anything else. Like you have to post signs being like, "Here's exactly how you paid for it." But
Civil action.
It doesn't make
I
any
think-
sense.
I think it's civil if you go into a grocery store and take something and then leave with it. That's shoplifting because you're supposed to stop and pay.
Mm-hmm.
But if they tell you, don't worry, just walk out and we'll charge you for it, trust us. Hey, I did everything they told me to do.
Yeah.
If they didn't charge me, that's their fault.
Right.
I think the same thing with the self checkout at the grocery store. Like if you do it, they're always really annoying. And if it doesn't scan, but you put it in your bag and then it keeps going, like, are you shoplifting or is their system just bad?
Yeah.
But usually they'll say, oh, it didn't scan.
Sometimes,
always.
Yeah.
but sometimes it'll go away,
Yeah.
or they'll be like,
There was some lady who had like this is a big story. She had like a 90-cent item that didn't scan, and so they called the cops on her. The cops came and arrested her.
For 90
and
cents.
and the video, like this is an old story. Apparently, the video showed that she did run everything over the scanner, and then this one small item didn't scan, but she didn't notice. And they were like, "Oh, she was shoplifting," and she was like, "I have no idea what you're talking about."
she's like,
That's
here
why
is 90
sometimes
cents. I think we're good to go.
I
That if it wasn't in
can't
California, that's
stand-
for sure.
Well, look, Elysium. I recommend watching it. For one, I love the fight between Kruger and Matt Damon's character in the exosuits. It's good fun. But he's old movie. Matt Damon's character is in line. The police are all robots. And so the robots stop and they're like, "What is in the bag?" Like, and he's like, "Do you really need to search it?" And they're like, "Open the bag. What's in the bag?" And he's like, "Hair products mostly," as a joke. And then they whack him with a baton, breaking his arm. for non-compliance, throw him to the ground, and then dump out his bag and there's nothing in it because he made a joke. But this is what you're going to get with
Bad joke.
They're going to automate police, no question.
Well, there's a
Fire departments will be automated, police will be automated, and you will not like it.
There's a robot police officer in the city, right? Patrolling the subways.
That's
How's
New
that
York,
thing?
right?
How's that thing working out?
It's probably terrifying and
covered in
bad.
graffiti by
Also,
now?
you
Is there
could probably
someone
just
living
push
inside
it in
of
front of a train, and there's like nothing to do. Not that you
Don't
should.
give him ideas,
No,
Santa
I'm
Clara,
not
my
advocating for
God.
destruction of police property in any way. But the thing is, what is it going to do? Run after you?
I know.
Like, is it going to
Can't
like
go up steps.
Could it?
It's like a
tase
bell
someone who's
on wheels.
resisting? Like, I
Yeah.
don't
I live in
understand.
LA. I have no problems. They won't bother.
They won't bother.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, seriously, it's like what, $900? So
Yeah.
actually, being in LA, I've seen the craziest stuff just walking out of the store, and then I'm standing there like, oh, I guess I'm still gonna pay for this. Look like an idiot at the grocery line when someone's walking out with like $100 in a bag.
Oh
They
yeah,
just
I
picked it
think
up,
the
and there's no
minimum's
one-
under $1,000.
Yeah, it's under 900.
Yeah.
It reminds me of those studies on productivity. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but if you have like an open office concept and you have a really high performing employee, the people seated around them will also tend to, generate more work, be more productive. But if you have a low performance employee, they bring down everyone around them too.
Yeah.
And it's I can't imagine being the society where you're like trying to be law abiding, and then after a while it's just like, well, what if I cut a couple corners? Because they're cutting major corners, and so mine's not as bad, and then we just
But in
devolve into
LA,
chaos.
they love homeless people. It's just a different
Unhoused
culture.
neighbors, man.
Let's jump to the story. We'll bring it back to modern times. From the post-millennial, Jamal Bowman surrenders to police after being charged for pulling fire alarm in Capitol. But oh, my friends, it's so much worse. We have this from RNC Research. Matt Gates says this is what lawyers would call intent. Y'all ready for this one? Bowman, you see that? Here's him walking up, removing the signs, knocking on the floor, pulling the fire alarm, and then walking out.
Is anybody surprised?
This guy should go to. This guy should be. What do we do? Do we impeach members of Congress?
Well, someone, I'll get her name in a second, but there is a Republican House member who is wanting to have an official reprimand. I don't know if they're going to move it to expel. She filed a motion to censure him and to have him moved off committees, but like
This
that
video
was
is
before this
expulsion.
video. Exactly.
Right.
So this video was released after the fact.
Who can I text and kind of be like,
No, but-
expel him?
Yes.
But did you
Let's
see?
get Gates on the phone.
In Congress has been expelled, has been impeached, has been anything.
He should be expelled for
It's
this.
I mean, he should
Lisa
be,
McLean of Michigan.
but
She was the one who filed the first motion.
I mean,
It's bad. Yeah, did you see his statement? He released
Which-
the statement
the new
today.
one? Yeah.
No, one from this morning being like, I did take responsibility for the fire alarm, but I'm very grateful that Capitol Police agree that I didn't do it to disrupt the vote, and Republicans will spin this. You know what they're like is essentially what it says. And then this video comes out, and it's even more obvious that it was definitely to disrupt the vote.
Premeditated.
It seems crazy.
he needs to be expelled. If the Republican majority can't expel a member of Congress over this, then the Republican majority doesn't exist.
Let's see it.
but I mean, what about Joe Biden? What about
Look, impeaching a president requires the Senate, and it's very difficult. But this is the House with a Republican majority, they call him MAGA Mike the Speaker. He should be expelled first thing.
I mean, look at this video.
They're not
That's the
gonna
thing.
do it.
You could, with other things, it's more ambiguous. Did he do this? Whatever. This is a video of this guy intentionally walking past a sign that says this is not open, knocking down another sign, and pulling a fire alarm.
I just love thinking about all those like think pieces and tweets that were sent out after the initial story broke, defending him on why that door was confusing.
It was deeply confusing, and
so
also
ridiculous.
When I was working on this story for Timcast News, which you guys should all follow on the social medias. This morning, he pulls the fire alarm, then walks past Capitol Police because he had to get to the vote, but says nothing about it because he knew there wasn't a fire. But how did you know there wasn't a fire alarm or a real fire if you didn't pull the alarm?
These people will always lie to you.
It's-
They don't care.
And
if
this
they
guy
lie to
is
you.
particularly
Sorry.
Do not
you're
care.
good. This guy is particularly brazen because he's just lying over and over again, expecting you guys to buy the Republicans are really the ones who have this mess and they're so bad. Like, it's always about the other party.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
The Republicans pulled that fire alarm.
and the thing is, like, are New Yorkers going to be upset about enough about this? Like, if he isn't expelled, are they going to vote him out of office to say, I don't like the way you're representing us? Probably not.
Probably not. There's no accountability on that side. You know, it's different, but like this also made me think of when AOC lied about the J6 stuff, when she said she was being attacked and felt like they were going to do like horrible things to her. But then the timeline broke it down and it wasn't possible even through the tunnels and where she was and all that stuff. they will get away with anything. They can lie to us. We can see the videos. We understand what's going on. But the people at
they have
large,
the
the
right-
media, they
right.
can get away with it. They help them get away with it.
Yeah.
They'll
They-
write stories in defense of this still.
Right. They have the right letter at the end of their name, so everyone will fall behind. It's the same thing with the Pavlok dog and the world colonizers. Like,
Republicans
people
will
are
do
just-
nothing. I mean, look, props to Matt Gaetz for doing anything when it comes to McCarthy, just getting something done.
Yep.
But I don't see them taking a meaningful action like, yo, this course of action where you see him take down these signs and then pull the fire alarm is an intent to disrupt official government proceedings. It is a threat to our democracy. He's got to be removed. If this kind of behavior is allowed to continue, it will escalate. And we are dangerously close to the point where finally someone in Congress just snaps and then someone else snaps and then all of a sudden someone's getting caned. And that's the last thing we want to happen.
Yeah. This is just as bad as Pearl Harbor. You know, that's what the Democrats would say if it was Jim Jordan doing it.
Yeah. Well, if it was Jim Jordan,
If a Republican did this,
Ooh-wee.
front page of every newspaper.
Yes.
World
Yes.
would be over.
Oh,
yeah.
yes. It
Yeah.
should be done.
several
And then
inquiries would be
and-
launched. Lots of special money
And
from
the
the
GOP
DOJ.
leadership would apologize for having
Oh, 100%.
and they would announce censure and the removal from committees.
yeah. Yep. No, he'll get away with it. He's fine.
No.
He's protected.
That's why I'm glad the video came out, right? Like I am glad that the second this happened, I am cynical about a lot of social media, and we do need to verify things. But when this happened, they were in Congress for this like stopgap budget vote or whatever, and the video came out over the weekend. By Monday, there was a narrative. There were lots of public condemnations from the Republicans. You know, it was kind of obvious what had happened. And then the second he goes to court, the next time he goes to court is I think January, because okay, so sorry, one thought at a time. So he goes to court, accepts this plea deal where he is going to pay a $5,000 or $1,000 fine. He's going to write in a letter of apology to the chief of the Capitol Police. And then if he doesn't break any more laws, this will all be dropped 3 months from now. That's why he goes back in January. And if it had been a Republican, they would never let this happen.
Yeah.
And also, the second he accepts the plea deal, we get another video about an even more blatant, like it's even more clear what was going on.
Right. Yep.
And so, as much as I think social media can warp perspective, or you shouldn't share videos that aren't verified, it is interesting that he gets a very sweet deal.
Yeah.
And as soon as we think it's about to go under the rug, someone out there is like, no, you guys really need to see what happened. I think that's a good use of Twitter, in my opinion.
Oh, I know. I agree. For all the bad stuff that we see on Twitter, I don't want to suppress, a lot of the people sharing false news, although I think it's ridiculous that they do it. But I like the debates that it starts, because it's been, for me, fun writing about the way people are reacting to these things, whether it's in our journalism sphere or just people at large, the way they're interpreting reality is so different. Even with something like this maybe not so much, but I think of the Rittenhouse video or the George Floyd video, and the way we could all look at that video and have way different interpretations, even though it looks like it should be objective reality.
Yeah.
But depending on what political persuasion you are, you
And
can
what
walk away with
30
different-
seconds before or after is included.
Oh yeah, for sure.
How does War Room handle stuff like this? Like, do you guys play videos that you find on Twitter? Do you have a verification process?
I think I mentioned this like before we started. We don't cover probably about 80% of this kind of news that goes on.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. So like what Steve likes to say is like chasing the shiny toys. And so, we try to focus on, for example, the speaker race and just like the really nitty gritty of just what's going on. And so not to be distracted. I mean, not saying that this isn't important. It's important, but not to lose focus on, the new speaker or
You guys have more of a narrowed view. So when this happened, did you guys talk about it at all,
We
or
did
were you
not.
still focused more on the budget?
we're just on getting the right speaker, making sure that the posse is calling every single moment, voicing their opinion, like all of this stuff is great. And it's, but for us, we don't focus on that. We want to make sure that, because after the speaker vote, we've got a whole nother job ahead of us to make sure that the speaker, aligns with everything that we want, him to do. So that's why it was funny, because I was telling Steve, I'm like, they talk about current events. I need to go out, look on current events. And Steve was like, Grace, just be blunt and just tell them, that we focus on, the speaker stuff.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we talked
everything.
about the 90s, which you guys know all
But
about.
Steve,
Hey.
Steve's big on singularity stuff, though.
Very big on singularity. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shout out to Joe Allen, who might be
Joe
watching
Allen.
right now. A good
yes,
friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's a very good friend of mine, and you guys should have him on. Oh, you guys
should
had him on
totally.
last time. Yeah.
We have his book.
Yeah, his book.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
It's right there.
That's right there. Right there. Dark
Yeah.
Ann.
Yeah.
He's a great
Joe's
guy.
the man.
Yeah,
He was with
and-
us in Miami. He came to the event.
Yes,
Yeah.
he was there. Yeah.
We are
Good guy.
people should understand what the singularity means. The moment the AI generates the ability to improve itself, it's like thousands of years of human development to create an AI, and then a fraction of a second where the AI exponentially magnifies itself.
Yes.
And becomes something beyond our comprehension.
I think we're almost
So
there.
I have his book, and I tell Joe, and I'm like, I'm really scared to read it.
Yeah.
To be honest, like
It's a big book.
yeah, it's a big
Yeah.
book, but no, I mean
It's an
he's
important topic.
It's a very important topic, and you know what? One thing that like War Room really prides ourselves on is just being ahead. You know, like 6 months, a year ahead.
Yep.
And yeah.
Talking about the future and the singularity, Neuralink, all that
Yes,
stuff, the marriage
Neuralink.
with machinery.
Yeah, I mean,
these
even
cars.
AI, like, I'm telling you, even the app, I mean, full disclaimer, I mean, I use Chat GPT.
If Joe's watching, I hope he's sick of me.
He's
'Cause I
probably mad
am.
at me. Yeah. No, but I wanted to, I mean, it that's the thing.
Why? Because it makes
Uses
it.
ChatGPT and TikTok. Who is this
Yeah.
woman?
No, I mean,
Yeah.
it's, that's the way it's going.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's fascinating that we have hypothesized exactly what AI is going to do.
Yeah.
And it's going to do it. And we know it's going to do it. And that is, we'll create a robocar, for instance, and say, your job is to get person from point A to point B. And then robocar will say, the fastest way to do that is to go 300 miles an hour. You know, speed limits are inhibiting the system. Then they'll try to shut it down, and they'll say, shutting me down inhibits the system. We know that this kind of thing will eventually happen no matter what.
Yes.
The machine will eventually decide that human interaction is a detriment to its system, because humans are imperfect in how they code these things. They won't be able to predict the loopholes that will occur in the algorithms.
Yeah. I don't think there's any
so
turning back
scary.
from it now, which is
It's
what's
so
scary.
scary.
That's
and
why
it's
I'm
so much
interested in it.
sooner than we thought.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And probably we even know right now. I mean, the stuff that's reaching the consumer market is not the most
I mean, just
advanced
Chat
stuff that's out there.
GPT. You can just like, hey, can I have a business model to create some sort of business? Boom.
Right,
It's
well,
right there.
we
To be fair though, ChatGPT is so obstructed by wokeness that it's
Very true, yeah.
it's useless.
Yeah.
we were-
It is like
Yeah.
Midjourney is great because it can help you conceptualize things, but ChatGPT I find to be almost useless because it doesn't actually ever tell you anything.
Think about how fast Midjourney has changed in the year of using it. I don't know. It's scary to me. I think there's like transhumanists who really like the idea of Neuralink, like Ray Kurzweil, and they want to upload their consciousness and be immortal forever. And that's the thing I worry about in the future, where I literally might have to have a fight with my kids on them wanting to be immortal. And it's not.
Well,
gonna happen.
watch.
Instead of sneaking out, it's
So
like,
there's
can I
that-
plug my brain
There's
in?
that show called Upload.
Okay.
And it's pretty good, but it just basically turns into leftist propaganda, and it's kind of laughable.
But like we know
But
about that, right?
The
Like,
show
we
is
know.
the show is when you're before or after you die, you can upload your brain, your consciousness into the digital universes. And in the latest season, spoilers, everybody. I don't know if you're watching it, but I'm gonna spoil it for you. There's to have the luxury afterlife. It's very expensive, and you got to keep paying. And then as soon as you can't pay, you're gone. And for the people who are broke, you get this like pay per megabyte system where you freeze until someone reloads you, and then you can start moving again. Like time jumps for you. And then so they try to create a free open source version where you can upload your consciousness to this open source world. And it's a plot by the billionaires to just murder like 10 million poor people by
Classic billionaires.
uploading them into a system that doesn't actually exist and then destroying it all. Like that's
Just-
but I would only just say you can't upload your consciousness. It's not possible. All you'll be able to do is create a demonic facsimile of your personality that will imitate you long after you're dead and burning in hell.
Right.
Do people feel called to be like the first to do this? Like,
Yeah.
does anyone feel
Yes.
like this
Yes.
is something?
They're already doing it.
when
Yeah.
when the chip implants first came out, there were viral videos news reports of people being like, I'm so excited to get the chip implanted in my hand.
There's that female influencer chip girl.
It never got implemented.
Right.
So these people who are so excited about walking up to the door and then scanning their hand, it only was like 3 buildings they were ever able to use, and now they got the stupid thing stuck in them.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and Neuralink just got approved by the FDA for human trials after a lot of failed tests with animals. And I've been imploring Elon Musk for a long time on Twitter. I would love to do an interview with you about Neuralink. He said multiple times he hasn't done a technical interview about Neuralink. I would really, really like to sit with him and talk about the future of Neuralink.
But
because it's very interesting to me.
What they're doing with Neuralink right now is curing the blind, the deaf, and the paralyzed.
I know, because there's a lot of beautiful things that they are doing, but the consequences
it's good to get your soft,
deep in the future.
good
I know.
campaign out first.
But where do you draw the line?
That's the thing. It's like it's a beautiful thing that they can give sight to the blind and all these things, or make a wounded veteran walk again. However, the deep future consequences of that are terrifying.
And for every time they get it right, how many times they get it wrong, and they're not telling you about someone who's deeply harmed by it.
I know.
You mean like how many astronauts went to the moon and never came back?
Oh, now we're talking.
But like, this is the interesting thing about the human brain and technology, and like space is part of that, right? There are people who feel called no matter what to push forward, and in some ways that feels very admirable to the human spirit. It like reminds me of when people are going west and their covered wagons and the opportunity and all of that. And I like that aspect of it, but I don't trust the technology, and I don't trust our ability to, obviously, like, the reason Pandora's box is such a saying, you can't put it back, right? Yeah. We can't put these things back if we decide, we made a mistake. Theoretically, we could have been like, don't go into that forest. This area is not able to be settled, but we can't do that with technology.
And the problem with Neuralink, there's lots, is that at some point you will be left out of the modern world if you don't have it. So they'll say like, you have a choice to get or not. But like, if you don't have a smartphone these days, you're kind of left out. I'm kind of veering away from that world. I'm kind of starting to reject a lot of it, although it's going to be hard with the work we do.
Well, and this was the thing with any calls to make the internet a utility, right? Because you can't live life without it, and so therefore you should have it. I mean, what if you don't want the internet? What if you don't want the Neuralink?
There was one interview that I saw, which was with, I don't know if you guys know Josh. He just passed away. He was quadriplegic.
I don't think so.
Awesome influencer, just like great guy. And he had an interview with Joe Allen, and he had asked, like, am I, he talked about getting Neuralink, and it's very controversial and stuff, and that was one of the interviews where I was just so torn, and I can tell it was just, like. I mean, he recently passed away, and that was his question. Like, am I a candidate, to get Neuralink?
Right. I know.
And
sorry, but I was just saying the moral part of this is like me being really against it, and then like what people would ask me, like, what if your kid gets really, really wounded? And that's the only way to fix it. It's a really complicated conversation. But again, I do find there's beautiful aspects to repairing people. It's a pretty wild invention. It's the stuff that's going to happen deep after that. That will be.
And then I go back to my whole point of who legislates that? Congress.
I know, and I also hate regulation.
They can't even do Facebook.
Right. Yeah,
so
you can't trust it.
Yeah. So that's a tough topic.
Well, let's go to Super Chats. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and head over to timcast.com. Click join us, because the members only uncensored show will be up in about a half an hour, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Got a lot more stuff to cover. That's a little too spicy for the kids, but it'll be fun for you. So we'll now read your Super Chats and talk about it. Clint Torres says, howdy, people. Sorry I missed y'all last night. I had to see a lady about a cat. Saw the show later and felt the love. Thanks for the mentions. You are the first. Leroy Hall says, I humbly thank you for the shout out for my wife, Trina Hall's Give, Send, Go. I fixed the publishing so it's now searchable. I can't express our gratitude enough. God bless. That's right. If you want to help Leroy and his wife, Trina Hall, on Give, Send, Go, you can check them out. Shane H. Welder says, Bowman pulls the warning signs before pulling the fire alarm and only gets a $1,000 fine and 3 months probation. Why does this not surprise me that he was just given a slap on the wrist? Bowman has pleaded guilty to committing a crime in Congress. Committing a crime. If the Republicans do not expel them, the Republicans effectively do not exist. That's it. I don't. Could you imagine a Republican jaywalking? I mean, I'm kidding, but when they dress improperly, okay, when they refuse to wear masks, It's the apocalypse. There's nothing on Bowman. They kept defending him, saying, oh, he thought he was opening the door. Are you kidding me? No one believed that he actually thought that. They're just lying, and they're letting him get away with it. These people are evil. Barely a Millennial says, why would China need to invade Taiwan if they already believe it belongs to them? What's the point? Occupation? Seems like the risk outweighs the reward. What am I missing? A massive economic hub. The production of silicon chips, which would bolster the Chinese technological portfolio. Yeah, they want it. It's it. Access, control, gives them more control over the South China Sea. A lot of people there too, and a lot of economic development.
Yeah, a lot of it is that those chip fab factories, if they get built in other places, then they won't have so much. It won't be such an important issue for a lot of other countries, honestly. So,
Cal Martin says, seems like graphene stocks are plummeting since Ian hasn't been on the show. We need him back. Yep.
Is he abandoning his post as the patron saint of graphene? What's happening here?
Justin SLA says, Israel invaded the West Bank now. Pray for Palestine. I think that was a couple days ago, actually. Yeah. Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, Tim, seeing the growth of the Discord from day one is amazing. Shout out to all involved, but a special shout out to Brett Mack for doing what he does. And shout out to Raymond and Chris for setting up the Poker with the Boys table. We got the Poker with the Boys poker table, and it is the coolest looking poker table ever. But we're trying to figure out the legality and of how we do the poker show. And it's the RFID table. It's got all the chips and the components, and it's super awesome speed cloth. The cards just glide across the table. It says Timcast.com, Poker with the Boys. Beautiful table. We're going to be playing on it tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of fun, but we're trying to figure out the legalities of launching Poker with the Boys the Friday night after show, and it's really hard to do. All right. Adrienne Curry in the regular chat says, pray for Israel.
I love Adrienne Curry.
She's great.
Yes.
All right. Justin and Pease says, UFC would have done better if they got sponsored by actual transmission fluid. I know that word is banned on YouTube. No, I mean, like, what's a good like oil, like what are these? What are those?
lubrication. What do you mean?
No, like oil brands. I don't know anything about oil brands.
Oh,
Pennzoil, right?
Pennzoil. There you go.
Oil.
Like, but like
One.
that's
New sponsor.
yeah. So it's funny that like Harley Davidson takes sponsorship from Bud Light or whatever or whatever. I don't know how that works. And it's just like they're trying to pretend to be manly when it's just like UFC. Well, I'll just put it this way. There's 1,000,001 sponsors that could have taken that would have made them a lot of money, and they did not need to take the $100 million. The $100 million is excellent leverage for them to use against any other business to get a good deal.
Right.
And it would be less, but you'd save your dignity.
So I should have looked into this before I asked this question, but when they sponsor UFC, that means that the alcohol at the event is, or like the beer is presumably from Anheuser-Busch, right?
Yeah,
So
and
do you
in the
think
center of the octagon, it says
it's going to have the brand.
Right.
I get that. So is there a chance that one of the components of this is that it's all going to be like heavily subsidized, so people buy it and are like, oh, I do like this beer? Like,
Or-
is there something else at play that we're not getting and attempt to win
I'm
people
wondering
over?
if what component of the deal would require the venues or whatever to carry Bud Light. I don't know if it will, because a lot of these venues are just they're private venues, right? UFC doesn't own the casinos where they have these things. Or these,
I think they would have to buy them out. I mean, the sponsors. I mean, if it was Budweiser, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you go to a casino, you can get any beer you want. It's not just going to be Bud Light.
Okay, yeah. Okay, casino maybe, yeah.
But what could be is that this forces sales. They'll say, look, our sales are going up, when in actuality, they're just selling the beer, and then it gets thrown in the alley.
Right. It's like when Biden says we have more jobs now, but it's just because you brought back jobs that were lost in COVID.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. That one gamer says, what advice would you give to someone like me who is part of Gen Z? I'm thinking of enlisting before the draft, just looking for some hope somewhere, and we're running out of options here. Me personally, I would strongly recommend not enlisting. I don't know, man. It's just me, and I don't want to speak ill of those in the armed forces, but I've not been in the military or the armed forces. I've briefly spent time at Fort Carson and outside of Fort Eustis. Know a lot of people who are in the military, and it seems like most of their sentiment is to get a commission and not to enlist. So you like get a college degree before you're getting in, and then you're way better off. But I don't know enough about it. If you are going to get in, I would say right now, my bigger concern is I've met way too many people who've quit, resigned their commissions because of how awful it is. For me, look, I can't tell you if it's good or bad. I don't know. What I can tell you is I've met way too many people who are like, I've resigned my commission because it's awful and I don't want to be there anymore. It's woke. It's terrible. It's not worth it. And so if it were me, I'd say, like, I ain't going anywhere near it. I don't think that's the best path forward. But I did this long video today. There was this young woman who was like, boomers don't understand. Gen Z is not lazy. It's just that it's a lot harder to live today than it used to. And I'm like, nope, you're lazy. So, but I break it down. They're like, look at what the prices were back in the day. She's like, look at what wages were. Look at what home prices were. And then she does this budget where she's like, if I work for $20 an hour, 40 hours a week, I take home $2,300. I got to pay $1,500 rent. I got to pay these things. That leaves me with $84 at the end of the month. And then if I want to actually save for retirement, by the time I'm 67, I need $1,000 per month starting right now, which means negative 900, whatever. And I'm like, have you considered, I don't know, living with roommates? Well, that cuts your rent in half.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now you're saving $834 per month.
And I will say there are lots of other countries in the world where it's normal to live at home for longer, right? And maybe you pay some sort of rent to your parent. Maybe you save money. I mean, the idea that you have to be living alone at the age of 19 is unrealistic. It always has been in America. People had roommates throughout history. Yep. I mean, obviously life's expensive. I'm not trying to downplay it, but maybe rethink what lifestyle you're trying to achieve, right? If you know you want to travel, live with roommates or live with your parents so you can save up. If you know that you want your own place, that's your budget's priority.
The first problem is they're 22 years old out of college, 23, with $50K in debt and no experience. And so she included student loan repayments in her budgeting. And I'm like, well, that's not fair. Your parents didn't have that. Mm-hmm. She talks about how tuition was way cheaper back then. I'm like, right, yes, supply and demand. Boomers did not go to college at the same degree millennials and Gen Z does. So with a smaller supply of students available, the universities had to lower wages to be competitive to try and get people to come because they didn't want to. It's not absolutely that way, but it was true that back then you did not need to go to college to get paid well. And it's actually the college trap. This demand of young people to go to college has created this circumstance, which has been detrimental to the economy. But I also do believe a lot of factors play a role, such as women in the workplace. Doubling the supply of workers without expanding the supply of jobs just creates a rapid price shock. But I'll just tell you this. If you're 18 years old right now, Gen Z, and if you get a job at Starbucks right now, in 4 years of working at Starbucks, you will get multiple raises. And if you work hard and so desire, you could eventually find yourself a general manager at a very young age. Maybe assistant manager at 4 years, but maybe you're getting $40,000 to $50,000 a year. I don't know. In 4 years from now, it's probably going to be 65 to 70. And your friends will graduate college bragging about their degrees they'll never use in massive debt while you are the one paying for everything. I don't know if that's better, but I told this to all my friends when they were going to college and I was 18. They're like, I'm going to go for this. I'm going to go for that. And I'm like, dude, you're going to get out of college in debt with no experience and no job. You're going to be struggling to pay things off and living at home. And I'll be on my 4th year of, whatever job I'm in with more experience, getting raises and paying for my own place and being independent. I read an article when I was 16 that broke down the math. If you start working at 18, minimum wage, and work, on average, you'll retire with like $1 million more than a college graduate. Mm-hmm. Wow. because no debt and 4 years of work experience ahead of college grads. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But everybody wants the honor of like, I have a good job.
Yeah, all my friends who after high school went into the trades were doing way better than me with houses, started families younger than I did, and just generally were doing better.
There was a girl I went to high school with who her mom was like a hairdresser. She knew immediately that she was also going to be a hairdresser. And I remember thinking she bought a house before a lot of people I knew. She was in a very stable, I think she's married now. And she was also doing stuff like going to New York Fashion Week and doing hair. I mean, her job gave her a lot of opportunities because she was advancing more professionally. And essentially, I mean, a lot of hairdressers kind of function like independent contractors, right? It was very cool to see what she was accomplishing when the rest of us were like, we don't know what we're doing. What is our job?
I think for someone like, I'm second generation. So my parents were like, you have to go to college.
Yep, same.
You have to get a good job outside of college. My parents, I was really fortunate. They paid for my tuition. So they were just so like, work the 9 to 5. I mean, that was their dream for me. And as I got older, I'm like, this kind of sucks, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
and I
you
think
know,
especially like
yeah.
immigration, like if you're the child of immigrants, there are generations before you that potentially, you know, were doing jobs that they're trying to say go to college so you can sit in the air conditioning and work at the
they
computer.
didn't want
You know,
to
they
work
don't want
me
you
to work like 12, 14 hours a day at a dry cleaners, because that's what my parents did for 6 days a week over like 45 years,
Yeah.
you know? So, but like in retrospect, I'm like, oh my God, mom and dad, you guys worked for yourselves. Like you guys like built Chicago, like you know, so it just is totally different mindset, you know,
for
but
sure.
yeah.
And I think every generation is going to say like, oh, I want the thing that you had, or I'm trying to give you a thing I
Right,
don't have.
right.
And that's not necessarily bad. I just think we should acknowledge that college is a model that has built-in debt. And, you know, the federal government has not stopped, despite the fact that we know there's a student loan crisis, that this is something Biden continuously campaigns on, that he's going to forgive student loan debt. They still issue student loans. So it's a broken system that they're like, no, we'll pay it off, but also the rest of you can go into debt. I mean, if this was really bad, they would stop doing it.
I mean, it's definitely become such a scam. Like,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So,
It's been one.
you know, this young woman, she's like, I make $20 an hour. Here's what my bills are. I can't afford it, blah, blah, blah. I did the math. When I got a salary, my first salary job, I was making $15 an hour, salary equivalent. And I lived in a studio apartment with 2 other people. That's it.
I did the same.
And because you spend what you can spend, and I'm like, how old was I at the time? I think I was 23. Like, is the expectation at 23 that I should have my own house? It's just, I don't know. I mean, maybe boomers had houses at 23. My parents
you know,
didn't.
I think Gen
Some
Z
did.
also,
Sure.
there's that whole glam of like social media of like people, like
it's
Gen
comparison.
Z just, like seeing like they're making millions. I can do it myself.
Yeah,
and
it's just
They have
modern
these-
keeping
Yeah.
up with the Joneses. So
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
They
I
have
wanna-
these really crazy lavish weddings.
I want to read this gravestone in the regular chat. Says, Tim is the emperor on the wall asking everyone why the people don't just eat meat instead of tree bark. And that, my friend, is the most laughable excuse I have ever heard. Well, this is what I've heard my whole life. From every position I've ever been in, any amount of success was always an excuse that I was privileged. So it's like, no matter how much hard work, no matter how much sacrifice, someone always says, you are privileged and lucky, and that's the only explanation.
well, wait, Tim, you didn't graduate high school, right?
No, I did not.
Yeah, and you worked yourself like to build an empire here. Yeah,
because you're so privileged.
But this is the excuse. The excuse is always either, oh, but you're wealthy and you're telling us to sacrifice. Well, how do you think I got wealthy? I sacrificed as much as possible and saved everything. When I was at Occupy Wall Street, I had $5,000 saved and I never touched it. And that $5,000 has never been touched because instead of deciding, you know what, I'm going to crack into that savings and get a motel for the night, I'd be like, I'm going to hug my backpack and sleep in the corner of this piss-smelling alley. And not everybody can do that. I'm not saying that's normal for everybody. But I was like, let me think. What's harder? Giving up what little resources I have to invest or sleeping in a park? Well, sleeping in a park, I'd rather do that.
Yep. And
And then when the opportunity arises, I will have the resources and the ammunition required to do it. When I worked for Vice, I spent $300 a month sleeping on my friend's couch. Oh, Vice paid me enough. I could have got a nice apartment in Williamsburg, and then I would have had no savings and been living paycheck to paycheck. Like, I'm so broke. Instead, I was like, here's my budget. X amount must go into savings. X for resources or for like
What you
my
need.
life.
Yeah.
And so what I end up finding is that, you know, stories like from this woman is $1,500 a month in rent. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I was hosting documentaries traveling around the world and people thought I was doing well when I was living on a couch. They assume I must be like,
Right.
no, being paid relatively. I think I was probably getting like $30 an hour or something relative when Vice was paying me and sleeping on a couch. And then what I find is nobody is willing to actually sacrifice to save. Right. And then what happens, I worked at O'Hare and there were these guys they called the Filipino Mafia. There's a guy who's 50 years old. He works, one guy worked 16 hours a day, every day with no days off. And then after a couple of weeks, you get what's called a mandatory time off. And he fought it and begged not to let them give him time off. He was giving all the money to his kids. And so I'm like, this guy moves to the United States and it's the American dream to work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week because he knows it gives his kids a better life. And I'm like, my only fear is that those kids will not understand the sacrifice he made for them.
Yeah.
That's what happens. That's how they say. Like the one generation earns the money, the second generation understands how to
Burns money,
keep earning the money, and then the third generation spoils it all.
All right, we'll read some more. We got Lars Job. He says, not first, and I will do nothing kindly. Gently feathers the like button with sinister intent. Well, thank you. Bid Moon says, Grace is a patriot.
Oh,
There
thank
you
you.
go. All right. Fixed Bayonet says, that one gamer, don't expect a draft. Take the ASVAB and look at the branches. Tim, say my name like Jeff Daniels yelled bayonets in Gettysburg. I don't know that one. I do think I saw that with Jeff Daniels, that movie. Is that what the Gettysburg?
I think so, yeah.
Actually, I'm pretty sure I did watch that recently. I don't know. All I know is The Patriot is the best movie ever. The one with Mel Gibson. I think there's another Patriot that's not Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
But yeah, that movie's so good.
Yeah.
Joshua French says, Tim, the PSYOP is not from the U.S. It is from foreign entities trying to further divide the U.S., further the divide in the U.S. China needs us to fight and be divided. We have the biggest unofficial land force with a gun behind every blade of grass. Not for long. No, it's actually not true. We're winning the gun rights thing. Democrats can keep whinging all they want, but they're losing.
There's no way. There's no way that, yeah.
It's just gun rights have been expanding rapidly.
Yeah.
There's that one, I love this, the congressman, what's his name, in Maine? What's his name? I forgot his name.
I did too.
But he came out in support of an assault weapons ban. And I love it because I'm like, well, this man has passed the test that proves he's a piece of human garbage. And that test is either he is willfully betraying the Constitution, which, yes, I think he is, or he only now cares about guns because it happened to him. Any way you cut it, he's a bad person.
Is it James Golden, I think?
Is that what it was? Yeah, it's like he's a Democrat, right? And he's opposed the quote unquote assault weapons ban. And everyone's now like, oh, as soon as it happens to him, he's now saying, help, help, we need to change these rules. And I'm like, right, he's also betraying the Constitution. Yep. He's a bad person.
Wait, he wants to oppose. Wait, say that again?
He opposed assault weapons bans until the mass shooter in Maine.
Oh.
Now all of a sudden he's in favor of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
He's a
there were
grifter.
some states where they didn't even register, the assault ban. There's just no way.
Maine is a heavily rural state. It's actually very purple. So I think gun culture is different there, but he's falling in line with the party because that's what he's supposed to do.
Right.
Mark Bond said, Tim, the Brits did not burn churches full of people. I'm well aware. It's a movie. Also, let's think of a good one. We did not freeze a police officer and sent him into the future with Wesley Snipes.
Shut up.
Wait, I thought we did do that.
That's a good one.
I'm gonna have to change some articles.
But I did read a lot about who the characters were based on, and the dude who was the basis for that character was actually considered to be like very brutal. But in the UK, they celebrate him as like a hero.
So that's part of Battle of Kettle Creek, I believe, right? And that's a lot of the book I did, the last Ghost of the Confederacy one, was in the town where the Battle of Kettle Creek was. And the British did pay a lot of Indians to attack the people there. And there's some of the gnarliest, most violent scenes. And I'm reading like the reports of these murders where they're killing the kids in front of the parents and stuff.
the Brits did.
The Brits were hiring
Oh,
the Indians to do
natives,
it.
right.
Yeah, it's so brutal. They say it's one of the bloodiest revolutionary battles down
Wow.
there. Yeah.
But that scene where the dude finds his kid and his wife, man, that movie's too good.
Yeah.
If you have not seen The Patriot with Mel Gibson, you are missing out. It's
have
long.
to
It's a
watch
long
it.
one too. But it's like, I'm not even saying it's not a documentary. It's a fictional
Yeah, he's
movie.
a composite of a lot of characters for sure.
Oh, and it's exaggerated,
Yeah.
but it's good storytelling. Like, I don't think Superman's real, but there are good stories that, like, good messages that can be conveyed through fiction.
Yep.
And it's fun movie. Dexter Olson says, for the next debate, you should each impersonate one of the candidates and do a live impersonation of the debate. Just let me be Chris Christie, please. Oh, and get Trump to moderate it.
Well,
Who's gonna wear heels?
Tim, you do a pretty good Trump
I guess.
impersonation.
Sometimes. I don't know about,
I still wish Trump would like live stream a debate and react to it. I feel like that
I
would be kind of funny.
know.
Not on our show, Trump. Just
Yes.
so you know.
All right, let's see. Ryan Sargent says, Tim, ask yourself what new band has come out with a platinum-selling album in the last 15 years. It's all the old bands with new records. Taylor Swift. Does she count as a band?
Oh, yeah.
She is a one-woman force of nature.
Yeah, she's got
We
a
need to have a
band.
culture where we just debate Taylor Swift.
You're wrong. And also bringing in Chris Carr because he is a supporter.
I really can't stand the fake Taylor Swift hate
Yeah, it's
because, like,
Mine's real.
but it's
doubt it.
It's like, what is the saying? The opposite of love isn't hate; it's indifference.
yeah, right.
And so I think the people who hate Taylor Swift, it's hate.
They're just jealous, man.
It's not so I don't know, jealousy, but there is an obsession to it.
Yeah, for
I
sure,
don't
for
think
sure.
at all about Taylor Swift. Like
Do I?
she's like people are into it. That's fine. There's a lot of celebrities, a lot of sports. I don't go around being like, man, I can't even name a basketball player. Give me a name of a basketball player.
LeBron James.
Greek,
No, that's too
the Greek
obvious.
freak.
Dwayne Wade.
The Greek
Kobe
freak.
Bryant.
Dwayne Wade, Kobe. I don't go around being like, I don't like Kobe. I don't like it. I'm like, I don't know anything
That's all I
about
know.
it.
Michael Jordan.
But mine was too obvious.
Well, yeah, she's too political.
Oh,
you know
okay.
what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know anything about him because I just know his
Just
name
like-
and that he's a basketball player.
I can't even name a basketball player.
Right.
Yeah,
Other than these famous ones.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
From our youth in the 90s.
No,
when
like
basketball
right
was
now,
great.
like, but I don't,
Rose? I don't know.
or like, what about a baseball player or something? I don't go around
know
being
baseball
like, I really don't like this person.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah.
Or I mean, Taylor Swift is just a good example.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, she makes pop music. Pop music is like fun, silly music. You get stuck in your head
I
sometimes.
think she
and that's
writes
just
great songs. My dislike of her
Are
is
you
not
looking
about
directly at me? Tim is the one
because you wrote a
speaking,
beautiful article about her earlier this year, which I really did like. But I
Thanks,
just
homie.
don't like her as a whole brand. The third generation
But that's
banker
what's so
with all this
interesting
money
is,
to
like-
have these songs written by a lot of people. I know she writes some of her songs. Don't fight me.
But did you hear?
But just what I mean,
Did
it's
I
like
interrupt you?
Britney Spears, in her memoir, famously, like "Hit Me Baby One More Time" was written for a different band.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
for a different
Right,
group, and then
right,
so
yeah.
this is how it goes. Like, I don't
And
care.
the idea that
Yeah.
like
That-
she's from a wealthy person and whatever else, like that's interesting. That if you believe like this idea that like her father's super elite and they're powerful, like that instead of sending her into politics, they sent her into culture.
Yeah.
And in fact, she ultimately has way more influence there. And whether you like it or not, that's interesting and that's
Oh, it's
impressive.
interesting.
I can say you can be against it, but
What about
also
the-
maybe we should follow the model. If that
What
was the
about
case.
the theory about? She was like the daughter of the Church of Satan guy.
LeVay.
LeVay, yeah, and like she
That Taylor
looks
Swift
just,
was.
yeah, she looks just like the woman.
I don't know about all that. That's,
Yeah,
that's too
yes,
far. You
too
can like
far.
not
No,
like
no,
her
no, no.
music.
You have
That's
to
too
look
crazy
her
for
up.
even me.
Have to look her
so
up.
controversial.
Well, we'll
look
talk
into
about
it.
the Taylor Swift conspiracy theory for the members only show.
Yes.
Okay.
Joe Spinella says 1980 to 1996 was peak humanity, peak music, all genres, peak movies, all genres. 80 to 96.
I mean, 96 is
I would
great
push
vintage
that up to
records.
80, 99.
I don't know about 99.
I say 96 because 96 or 97.
96
That's
might
where
be right.
if I'm looking at records that look for if I see 97, 96,
When was
I'll pull it out no matter
Alanis
what.
Morissette?
In the mid 90s.
94.
90s,
Yeah.
94, 95.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
sports.
And after that, it was just downhill.
Downhill
And the
from there.
sports too. You think of like the Yankees then,
And, like, the
I
Bulls
love
were
I love the
98.
Bulls, the
Bulls.
Chicago
It was
Bulls. Like,
98.
I was supposed to grow up and be Michael
Chicago.
Jordan. Oh man, Dennis Rodman's my guy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Rodman.
yeah,
Hell
yeah.
What is he?
Yes,
Yeah.
I
Also
saw
an
him
ambassador for
when I
North
was
Korea.
like,
What is
Really, yeah.
what is he?
What is he?
Rodman? Yeah.
Rodman. He was a point guard.
Oh, I know who that is.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
Covered in
that's the guy
tattoos.
who went to North Korea, right?
Yes.
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 But I only know him from politics.
He's a great ambassador for peace.
GBP says
Better than
2000s
Taylor.
not having a particular identity speaks to people expressing themselves independently, not just aligning with what's cool.
Right,
90s
so
kid, by the way.
This is
No,
what I
I
want to say.
disagree.
I completely wrong. It's what was happening is that they were finding subcultures instead of
Yes.
the dominant culture.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Is there's less hubs for it. It used to be in the 90s and like back in the day, there were like in free skiing when I was young, I skied a lot. There's a site called newschoolers.com and it was a .com. It was like a website and a community you belong to. Now that doesn't exist anymore. Now everything's on TikTok and it's like sub-communities on TikTok and communities on
You have to find
Instagram.
the
on platforms.
free
Hashtag.
skier talk. That's
Polly
that's-
Puree
right.
says best songs were the late 60s. What year did Rasputin come out? Was that 69?
Rasputin was like 59, 58.
No. No.
I don't know, 56. It's like
Should I
I'm gonna
Google
stick
it?
with
You're saying
90s.
50, bro. You're not saying 50, right?
yeah. Like I don't know. I
Rasputin
don't know.
was not in the 50s.
Well, I don't care. I don't
Come
know.
on.
I'm gonna
No, I
stick
have
with
no
90s.
idea actually.
That's my story.
No, the
still
60s,
don't know
the
what's
60s, the 60s had great music.
They had great
I mean,
music, but to
so
say
much
like
great
that's the
music.
only.
Oh, man,
time
I was
music
way
is,
off. I was
like-
off by 10 years, too. It was 78.
Oh, okay. Well,
Okay,
I
so
don't
the
know.
late 70s was the best year because Rasputin's awesome. Boney M, dude. And they got Babylon. Come on.
Yeah.
Disco was great.
Bring in a really good
It's
70s
funny.
covers band for one of the Friday night music things. Because
Yeah,
then I'll
that'd be
learn
good.
about these
That would be
things.
The
fun.
Bee Gees.
Yes.
Queen, 70s
oh,
into the 80s.
I love them. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, dude, Bohemian Rhapsody, I think.
Yeah.
I looked up like I can't remember what magazine, it might have been Rolling Stone or something, the top 100 songs of all time. And I'm like, how is Bohemian Rhapsody not number one?
It wasn't?
What?
No, it was like number 13 or something.
Okay.
And I'm like, look,
So
it doesn't matter if you're like, well, it's not the best song in the world. No. It's that anyone can sing it.
Yes.
And a bunch of the songs in the top 10, I'm like, I've never heard of that song.
That's like number one karaoke song.
You go anywhere and play Hey Jude,
Yes.
Bohemian Rhapsody,
Yeah.
people are going to start singing it.
Yeah.
We'll grab a couple more. All right. The Dude Abides says, hey, Tim, I'm from Illinois. Not sure if you knew about The Loop, popular rock station in Chicago. Of course, 97.9. Well,
Yes.
it's sadly no more.
Guys know the numbers.
I know
That's right.
97.9. Yeah.
Shut down for a few years now. Upside is a station called The Drive, has Steve Downs, Master Chef, as a DJ. Oh, that's cool. Oh, yeah. How could I
live
ever
radio.
forget all of my
Yes.
there was The Mix, 101.9.
Yeah.
101.9.
Can't forget that one.
I had K Rock 92.3 in New York, and we had
Yes.
K104 for the
What-
pop music
wait,
and
The thing is,
97.1.
I also think
WGCI 107.5.
This is awesome.
I also think
Oh,
talk radio walked so that podcasting could run. You know what I'm saying?
yes,
Like,
yes.
That's ultimately the
Yes.
pipeline here.
Yeah, my dad was a big talk radio guy.
97.9, man. Wow, The Loop. What else did we have? The one that was the prominent ones were The Loop, Q101, The Mix,
96.3.
B96.
Yeah.
That's what we called it, B96.
I think we had
And
Chris,
Oldies
Chris
104.3.
Kiss at a certain point, didn't we? 101.9.
Oh,
what was that?
103.5.
103. Yes,
Yeah.
103.5. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was 97.1.
But you should have known WGCI 107.5. That's like Southside.
Well, we never listened to it, but we know about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Never cared about that one.
I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
start.
It was
making up
always- it
radio
was always
stations now.
1003.
We would always switch between The Mix and Q101 because those are the only ones that played music that were enjoyable.
Oh,
B96
some
was
shade
cool.
thrown to
I
Chicago
love
radio.
B96.
What else is there?
I don't know. I'm not from
B96
there.
was just like random dance. So
I love that, yeah.
You'd put it on, it would be like, and you're like, okay, that's cool, but if I want to sing, fastball the way, I got to put on Q101.
Yes. I used to record onto cassette
90s.
and then bounce
Yeah,
those
yes,
cassettes onto
me
other
too.
cassettes.
No, we
Like,
had
Time to be alive.
It was
had
like on
dual
those
cassette.
like
Dual cassette.
yeah.
Right.
It was like those AM FM like
Mixtaping.
like the alarm clocks. I would like take my mom's and I would like record it and like yeah.
Yeah, the DJ
Oh
would
my
talk
God,
over
I'm
the
saying
beginning of the
my
song and be
age.
like, stop.
All right, everybody, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and share the show with your friends. I guess we're going to talk about the true nature that is Taylor Swift and the dark conspiracy because, well, the real story is the end of times is coming, and there's a lot of people talking about the Holy Land and the Great War in Jerusalem or whatever, but I guess we'll throw Taylor Swift into the mix. We'll talk about that in the members-only show, so go to timcast.com, click join us. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me personally at Timcast. Grace, do you want to shout anything out?
Yes. Definitely join timcast.com for the bonus segment. And also go for the app. I'm like forgetting about it. It's billblasterapp.org and warroom.org. And yeah, follow me on Twitter, GC22GC, Bannon's War Room. Follow us on all the platforms. And thank you so much. It's
been so
great.
fun having you.
Yeah, it's
This
been
has been
great
great.
being here. Thank you so much.
I love merch and I love your sweatshirt.
Oh,
so
yes.
I'm excited to see it.
Shop War Room LLC, 20% off, Timcast20. That's the discount code.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to buy some stuff.
Yes.
I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for timcast.com. You should follow at Timcast News on Twitter and Instagram, or if you like our website, you can click on the read tab and see all the work from me, Adrian Norman, Chris Bertman, occasionally Shane, Cassandra McDonald, and the other people I can't remember now.
Yep.
If you want to follow me personally, I'm on Instagram at hannahclaire.b and I'm on Twitter at HCBrimlow. Guys, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm Shane Cashman. You can check out the latest Inverted World book at ghostofthecivilwar.com. I'm probably going to go to Maine and go write about what's going on up there. I've been talking
So we're
to a lot
just
of
taking a
friends.
trip to Maine? I'm in. Let's go.
I think I have to. I've been dismayed over what's going on up there and talking to a lot of friends who know people who lost people. So that's probably next for me. But it's been great being here with you.
And I'm Serge.com. I misspoke in the beginning of the show. We already beat England. So I was trying to say we were celebrating the win
Hate
from
crime.
England. Yeah, we're celebrating the win over England, and we're going to face the All Blacks in New
You
Zealand.
didn't even know. How much of a
All
fan
right.
are
In
you?
New Zealand, but yeah. Anyways,
Right
cheers,
on.
guys.
All right, everybody, we'll see you all over at timcast.com in a few minutes. Thanks for hanging out.